Hello guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Fem Jashin? Part 1. Huge shout out to Reon-D-Anibis for this story. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. Orochimaru laid with his back against the rocky wall in a small pool of his own blood. His left arm seemed like it was ripped off. And his left leg broken. Among him were severed body parts of his shinobi. How could this have happened? He asked himself as his right-hand man was healing his beaten and broken body. He also were sporting a few bruises as well. Flashback. Orochimaru was standing in an empty chamber. His snake-like eyes filled with pride for the success of this ritual. He stood there by a circle with an inverted triangle in the center. Around him were several other nins sitting crossed-legged chanting in an unknown language. As the chanting continues, the symbol begin to grow. Orochimaru-sama. Kabuto called his lord kneeling behind him. Yes, Kabuto. The snake Sannin said with hint of a smile. I've received word that Konoha is under attack from the Kyuubi no Yoko. That is quite interesting news. He mused as he rubs his pale chin with his equally pale hand. Keep an eye and report to me everything that transpires. Is that understood, Kabuto? Yes, Orochimaru-sama. The gray-haired spy said as he uses Shunshin out of the ritual room. Orochimaru chuckled, his thick purple robe shaking through his movement. Soon I will have my vengeance on that pitiful village. He chuckled. As he was thinking on his vengeance, he saw that the symbol began to glow an eerie purple-black color. It's time. He grinned. The light formed to the form of a female. She wore a black robe which clings to her body, showing her figure. The robe was open, showing her F-cup cleavage. She has black and silver hair and reaches to her hips and 2 shoulder lengths, framing her face. Her eyes were dark purple with red slit pupils and sclera being black. She wore no shoes and therefore being barefooted. A symbol on her forehead, the same circle with the inverted triangle colored red. What is this place? Her voice echoed in the chamber. The summons sat there in awe. Before them stood the goddess of blood and destruction. Some of the males in the chamber were having difficulties moving. You're in my village. Orochimaru said with triumph. The woman looked at the mortals in her presence. Why have you summoned me, mortal? She asked. I've summoned so you can submit to me. He said as if ordering her. I'm not interested in you, snake. The goddess replied. Oh, I concur, my dear. The snake Sannin grinned. Suddenly chains burst out of the ground and tied around the goddess and brought her to her knees. What is this? She asked, surprisingly calm. As you realized, I had everything planned, Jashin-chan. He licked his lips. Now if you don't mind. You will be given the honor of bearing my children. He chuckled as he looked to other shinobis. And when I'm done they can have their fun with you. He chuckled again and then breaks into a loud laughter. Which was accompanied by said goddess. Which also made him stop. Ahahahaha. You dare think you can make me yours? She raised an eyebrow. Of course. Orochimaru said. I have summoned you. Therefore you do as I say. I have already chosen who I want to be with. She grinned. As a matter of fact, he is recently born. And with that she easily broke the chains, shocking the room occupants. The snake Sannin stood there. Oh, you will submit to me. Rather you want to or not. Get her. Jashin simply looked as other shinobi appeared out of the shadows ready to do their master's bidding. She shook her head. The foolish mortals that think that they can even lay a hand on her. Have your fill. She muttered as her shadow increased in size. The Odo shinobi's look as her shadow began to bubbles and pop. A clawed hand reaches out of the black substance. A creature that was black as the night came out. It was rather large and stood about 9 feet 2. 5 razor-sharp claws as fingers and 3 claw-like toes for feet. Its head was shaped like a human's and the face female with the Jashin insignia on its forehead. She stood next to her mistress and was ready. Though her body slouched and her clawed hands were lazily hanging by her, said Barley, touching the dirt ground. What in Kami's name is that? Yelled one of the Odo nins. I don't know, but I don't like it. Another commented as he pulls out a kunai. We have to kill this thing for Orochimaru-sama. A kunoichi said as she stood ready. This is a shadow raver. The goddess introduced it. One of my many types of servants. Kill some of the males. She commanded her servant. Bring the females and the surviving males for training. The servants nodded her head as she slowly opens her eyes to take note of her surroundings. They were pitch black, like as if no light can enter nor escape. The shadow reaver let out a muffled growl which put the trained shinobis at their edge. With no one moving, one shinobi decided to be brave and attack the goddess from behind. But that was a mistake that started the other's demise. For as soon that the shinobi reached the goddess, another clawed hand bursts out of the shadow, piercing him right through his chest. A second shadow raver crawled out of the shadows and tossed the corpse aside like a ragdoll. It released a threatening muffled growl at the others, daring them to attack their mistress. Let them or die by my hands. Orochimaru ordered them. Out of fear for their leader they attacked the 3 other occupants in the room. It was a massacre. The 2 Shadow Raver leapt at the group taking 2 halves for themselves. Jashin herself leapt into the fray to have some fun herself. The 2 Shadow Ravers ripped through the shinobis like they were wet tissue papers with their razor-sharp black claws. Severed limbs and innards were flown everywhere. The Kunoichis were incapacitated due to severe wounds or blood loss. Those very women sank into the shadow that was still at the center of the room, even though the goddess was not standing there. The few men sank in too, albeit painfully. Orochimaru looked in awe as his shinobis were being killed like they were children versus angry grizzly bears. He was so awed that he nearly failed to realize the goddess in front of him. Nearly. Through the years of being a shinobi his body moved on instinct as he avoided a dark blood-red blade where his head was. The snake Sannin looked at the massive blade that nearly ended his immortal life. The snake Sannin moved aside and went into a Hibiken fighting stance. Such a childish stance. The goddess taunted as she taps her weapon on her shoulder. It was indeed a scythe. The staff was coal black and about 2 meters long in length. The large blade that nearly pierced the ex-Konoha Shirahebi was but the top of the 3, which was at least a meter long. The second blade below it was half a meter, and the third and smallest was 1/4 of a meter long. Each blade being at least 3 to 4 inches in width. The dark goddess lashed at the snake Sannin, slashing diagonally. The pale-skinned man avoided the slashes only to be kicked in the chest hard. Taking advantage of her opponent's misbalance, she slashed him across the stomach. Only for him to melt into a large clump of mud. "Tsuchi Bunshin," she muttered. Without a moment's thought she tapped the staff part on the ground. Upon doing so blood seeped out of the ground and spread out. "Find him," she commanded the life fluid. Tendrils began to rise out of the red pool and hardened, forming into spiked chains. And within a second they burst out in several directions, piercing anyone fooling to be in their way. The goddess didn't have to wait long as a cry of pain was heard. Out of the shadow Orochimaru was being pulled by the chains. 2 were wrapped around his left leg. 1 was around his left arm. And 1 was wrapped around his neck. The small spikes digging into his pale skin as he struggles against the force of the sentient chains. The chains dragged him until they heft him up by his neck, holding in place. "Now what shall be done with you?" she pondered as she passed her hand over the blades. "You summoned me without a contract. That's enough for me to take your soul. You wanted me to bear your children. That could get you killed by my father." She raised her tri-bladed scythe. "I'll just cut you up," she said with a maniacal grin, her sharpened fangs in full view. But before she'd bring her weapon to rip the Otokage's body to pieces, a hand covered in a pale blue chakra pierced through her chest. The goddess looked at the hand that was below her side and glanced back. "I'm surprised to see that someone's still alive," she said rather calmly despite a hand pierced through her chest. Obito stood there panting behind the goddess. His hand covered in her black blood. His wounds healing due to his self-healing ability. But the goddess did not care. She had a fiancé to meet. She quickly grabbed the offending hand and snapped the wrist like a twig. Kabuto winced and was pushed back by a heavy kick from the goddess's bare foot. He crashed into the wall and struggled to get back up. But stopped when a black spear pierced through his shoulder, keeping him in place. She then returned to looking at the bound Sannin and grinned. She held the blades to his left arm and they began to rattle. The blades began to twist and morph to a tri-clawed hand and grabbed the bound Nin's left arm. "Let me hear you scream," she yelled as she rips the Sannin's arm off. He screams in pain as his blood burst out of his shoulder as he was in high adrenaline. All the while Jashin laughed in madness. Enjoying the bloodshed and pain she brought to her enemy. She then grabbed him by his neck and tossed him to side like a spoiled doll. That was wonderful. She smiled as her scythe vanished in a puff of black smoke and the chains receded back into the ground. "I should go. I've waited enough time here." NGOJ. Location. Konohagakure, same time as Jashin's summoning. The QB no Yoko was in rage. Building toppled under the giant's fox's claws. The tail swipes causing quakes and tsunami to be born. The QB was now defending itself from the shinobi of the village. "Keep it here," one of the shinobi yelled. "We have to keep it at bay until Yondaime-sama arrives." As if Kami was listening, a giant toad lands with a loud crash before the powerful demon. It was orange with red tribal markings and wore a small blue jacket over its back. It has a tanto strapped to its side with one of its webbed hand on the handle. "Alright, Minato," the large toad bellowed. "Are you sure you want to do this?" "I'm sure, Gamabunta." The current village leader stood on the toad boss's head, the moon shining behind him showing his silhouette. "Forgive me, Hinata," he said somberly. Everyone watched as the QB's form began to morph into chakra and swirl down. They cheered as their leader vanquished the beast. But only few know what really happened. "Minato-kun," an old man said as he looked at his successor's body. He noted that he had a small smile on his face. The old man picked up the small baby in his hands. He has blonde hair with red highlights and blue-violet eyes. A trait from both his mother and father. He has whisker-like birthmark on his face, 3 on each cheek. He looked at the small boy and cried. He mourned for the life he would live. He mourned for the people lost this night. He mourned. Location. Konoha Hospital. The small baby boy was sleeping soundly. The now reseated Sandaime Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, also known as the professor and master of 1,000 jutsu, has appointed 4 of his most trusted Anbu to look after the baby. But unknown to them, the baby is about to get a visitor. Jashin appeared next to baby in a black poof of smoke. The dark goddess looked at the infant before her eyes and senses a familiar aura emitting from the baby. Perhaps. She mused as she placed her finger on the infant's stomach and closed her eyes. Mindscape. Jashin opened her eyes. She surveyed the area she was in. It was large island surrounded by swirling whirlpools. She noted that the large house before her. It was at least 3 stories high, made entirely out of stone. The foundation was well maintained and sturdy. She entered through the massive sized doors and made her way through the halls. She's been walking to what seems to be hours. She reached another set of doors. This was half the size of the entrance, at least 2 meters high. She can sense the strong aura behind this door and pushed it open. Despite its size, the door moved smoothly over the red carpet. Before her was a throne. It was blood red and someone was seated on it. She wore red royal robe that accented her beauty. Her hair was long and red that flowed like a waterfall. Fox-like ears above her head. Her eyes were light violet and slit pupils. Jashin noted the 9 fox-like tails behind her. Who are you and what are you doing in my Sauchi's domain? The tailed woman asked in authority while sways the baby gently. The goddess now noted the small bundle in the tailed woman's arm. Wrapped in red and blue silk was the baby she saw earlier. Jashin gave a small bow to the woman. My name is Jashin, goddess of blood and destruction. And your son has piqued my interest. You are the daughter of Shinigami-sama? She asked. The one and the same, Kushina-san. The goddess smirked. If I may be bold to ask. What brings one of the demon lords to destroy such a pitiful village? She questioned. Kushina snarled. Her canines bared. These pathetic humans wanted to take my kid. My husband wanted to plead with them, saying that it was impossible for mere humans to look after him. The pathetic civilian council wanted him as a weapon. We disagreed. The rest is history. He's now an orphan. His father dead. His mother sealed within him. I know Hiruzen will do his best to protect my kid. But Danzo and the blind villagers are the ones I'm looking out for. She looked down sad. No one would want to look after my kid. He's both a Jinchuriki and a demon as well. I have a solution, Kushina-san. The goddess said as she walked up to the demoness. And what would that be? She asked. Let me offer him my protection as well. She stated. Now why would the great and mighty Jashin-sama want to offer her blessing to my kid? The red asked, her tail lashing at small intervals. I want him as my husband. The goddess simply answered. Kushina frowned. And if I refuse? Then your son will die at the age of 7. Like he should if you do deny my offer. The dark goddess answered with a sad expression. That got the QP's attention. Seeing that I have your attention. As the daughter of Shinigami, I have picked up the trait of seeing how and when someone dies. She looked into the eyes of the demoness. It is not a pleasant thing. You know the life of a Jinchuriki as do I. He will be looked down upon and be a pariah of this village. Humans will want him dead, believing that he is the QP and not a container. I see only few will acknowledge him. But if you accept the offer, I will protect him. My followers will become his followers. And I will figure out a way to release you from this seal without killing either of you. She offered. Kushina sat there for a while. Contemplating on this situation as she lightly brushed her clawed hand over the sleeping baby. The pros far exceeding the cons. Very well. She nodded. A scroll poofed next the dark goddess and opened up. This is a marriage contract. She stated. With that you're engaged to my son. But since he is the last of the Namikaze and Uzumaki in Konoha, they will enact a CRA on him when he reaches the age of 16. Will you be able to share him with these other women whether they are human or not? As long as they love him truthfully. She said. Kushina nodded. Sign the contract with your blood, Jashin-sama. The goddess nodded and her nail extended about a few inches. She slid her hand balled a fist. She wrote her name on the contract with her black blood. Her name glowed and dimmed. It is done, mother. Jashin grinned. Kushina smiled. Welcome to the Uzumaki clan, Jashin-chan. She looked at the baby. What do you think, Naruto-kun? Already a few hours old and you're engaged already. She giggled to her baby as he lets out a gurgle giggled. Naruto was walking through Konoha. He wore a black shirt with a red sleeveless haori draped over him. Black shinobi pants with steel-toed combat boots. On his right arm there's tattoo with the kanji Mitsu and his right left Hitatsu. He wears his leaf Hitai around his neck. the villagers glaring and sneering at him. He didn't care. He stopped caring after the Hokage told him about his true past when he was 6. At first he was angered, but after hearing the reason why he toned down and forgave his surrogate grandfather. He met a lot of people along the way of his life. "Naruto," a female screeched. And that was one of them. Naruto winced as he rubbed his ears. And turned in his blue-violet eyes to see a shoulder-length pink-haired girl running towards him. She wore a black top over her A-cup bust with a dark pink waist-length jacket over it. She also wore red fingerless gloves and black thigh-length stretch pants. She has light emerald green eyes that were frowning at the red-tinted blonde. She wears her leaf Hittite as a hair holder. "Yes, Sakura-chan," he answered with a smile. "Kakashi-sensei has news for us," she said as she made her way to Training Ground 7. The Jinchuriki sighed as he followed his teammate. At Training Ground 7 2 other shinobis were there. One was a teen of 16 years and leaning against a tree brooding. His hair was black and shaped like a duck's ass, 2 bangs framing his face. He wears his leaf Hittite on his forehead. His onyx eyes looking at the 2 approaching teammates. By another 3 stood a Kunoichi. She has gravity-defying gray hair save the few strands that are able to hang over her forehead. She wear a jonin flak jacket over a blue long-sleeved shirt, a blue shinobi pants. A mask covering half her face over her nose. She wears a leaf Hittite over her left eye. She looked up from her orange book to see her other students. She closed the book and placed it in her weapon pouch. "Yo, Kakashi-sensei. What's up?" Naruto greeted. "Yo, Naruto, Sakura." She greeted back as she pulls out 3 slips of paper. "These are for you." What are those?" the pin cat asked. "These are your papers for the Chunin exams," the daughter of the White Fang said with an eye smile as she passes the papers to her genin team. "Okay." Sakura complied as she takes her paper. "You have to go the academy and be at room 301 at 9 in the morning." And with that the jonin poofed away. Naruto sighed as he slipped the paper in his pocket and began to walk away. "Hey, Dobe, don't be late," Sasuke muttered. "Shut it, team," the supposed dead last retorted calmly as he kept on walking. "Don't call Sasuke-kun that, Naruto baka," Sakura screeched. "Chen." Sasuke walks away. "Sasuke-kun. Want to go out?" the first Haruno Kunoichi asked as she follows her lover. Naruto sighed with a deep breath. This day better get better. He hoped. "Let me go," a child's voice yelled. "Or not," he sighed as he made his way to the sound. When Naruto arrived he sees 2 teenagers. One was who is about 17 is dresses in a full loose black bodysuit with cat-like ears at the top. There appears to be some bandaged item on his back. He has purple-like markings on his face to make look intimidating and a Suna village Hittite sewn to the top of hoodie. He has deep brown eyes. Behind him stood a teenage girl with dusty blonde hair set in 4 separate pigtails about 18. She wears a black battle kimono that's slightly open showing a small portion of her mesh shirt and a red sash tied around her waist. She also a large rectangle black metal weapon strapped to her back via the sash. She wears her Suna Hittite over her forehead. He was holding up a boy about 13 years of age. He wears silver-like helmet with his ponytail sticking out of the opening. He has a medium-sized yellow shirt and gray knee-length shorts and a long blue scarf tied around his neck. He also wears blue shinobi sandals. There were also 2 other kids around the boy's age group. One has brown hair that was cut in a small bowl ear length. Onyx eyes and a running booger out of his right nostril that looks like it fall out at any moment but never will. He wears a gray shirt and dark brown pants. He also wears blue shinobi sandals. Next to him was a girl with dark orange hair set into puffy ponytails set in an upward V formation. Dark eyes and a permanent oval rose blush on her cheeks. She wears a dark pink shirt with an equal colored skirt. You can see the knee-length pink pants. She also wears blue shinobi sandals. "You just bumped into me and hurt my leg," the older boy yelled. "You really think I'll just let it slide?" He grinned. "Hankaru, just let him go," the dusty blonde demanded in an annoyed tone. "If she was here you wouldn't be doing this." "That's why I have the chance to this," the now-known Kankaro answered. "You're an idiot to cause trouble in this place," Naruto said as he made himself known. He stood there with his hand in his pockets. "I would like for you to put Konohamaru down." "Aniki," the 3 kids yelled in unison. "And who the hell are you?" the painted teen asked. "You didn't put my friend down yet," he said leaking out some kai. The older teen froze momentarily. That was enough for the smaller boy to get out of the Sunanin's grasps. "Thanks, Aniki." The Hokage's grandson smiled. "No problem." He smiled. "Now go. I'll handle this." The 3 ran away while Naruto stayed there with the 2 Sunanins. "You're messing with the wrong person," Kankaro threatened as he reached out to grab the bandage bundle on his back. "You're gonna use that, are you?" the older teen asked with a frown. "Shut it, Tamari." He asked for it. But he didn't even get to put his hand on the bundle. Because a red-bladed katana was millimeters away from his jugular. I would suggest that you refrain from doing any unneeded actions. The red-tinted blonde said in a cold whisper. He's fast. The Suna shinobi and Kunoichi thought. And would the beautiful red head and restarted chicken fast come down? Sasuke scowled for being fronted by the dope. But he looked back as a small dusk of sand appeared behind him. The sand vanished and in its place stood a shoulder-length red-haired 16-year-old teen. She wears a red robe shirt with baggy red pants. A gourd was strapped to her back, tied by a red belt. She wears her Suna Hitai around her neck. She has red kanji of love engraved on the left side of her forehead. She was looking at her unknown fellow Jinchuriki with her pale blue eyes. "Pankaro," she muttered void of emotion. "You're an embarrassment to our village." "But, Gaara." Gaara's eyes momentarily flashed a star-like gold iris and reverted back to their pale blue. "Shut up. Or I'll kill you." "I'm sorry," he said submissively. Gaara appeared in front of our hero in a swirl of sands. The two were staring at each other, gauging the other with their calculative gaze. "You're interesting," Gaara mused. "You're cute." Naruto grinned as his weapon poofed away in red smoke. Gaara's eyes were slightly wider, but they reverted back to the narrowed position. "What is your name?" "Uzumaki Naruto." He bowed as he took her hand, surprising the three Sunanins. "A pleasure to meet you." He kissed her knuckle gently. 3 different reactions from the 3 nins. Temari was shocked and slightly jealous. Kankaro fainted, not wanting to see the redhead slaughter the dumb red-tinted blonde. Gaara's face had a slight expression of shock and a small hue of pink on her pale cheeks. And was also wondering why her sand didn't stop him. But the near-sweet moment was ruined by the Konoha's last Uchiha. "Hey, dope. Don't infect her with your stupidity." Sasuke grinned as he tried to embarrass the red-tinted blonde. Naruto sighed as he gently released the hold on the redeed. "Ignore my asshole of a teammate." He smiled lightly at the 2 Kunoichis before him. "May I have your names?" "Tsubaku no Gaara. I'm the youngest of the 3. The redhead introduced herself as she motioned to the dusty blonde Kunoichi. "Tsubaku no Temari. I'm the oldest." The Suna Kunoichi introduced herself as she held her hand out to shake the shinobi's hand. Which in turn he gently takes it and gently kissed her knuckles. "Charmed." He smiled at her. The Suna Kunoichi tried to fight of the blush to its minimum. "I assume you 3 will be in the Chunin exams?" He asked as he released Temari's hand. Gaara nodded. "That is correct, Uzumaki Naruto." "Naruto's fine." He said. "Well, I gotta go. See you guys around, Benahim, Sunahim." And with that he left with a fire shunshin, leaving behind 2 flustered Kunoichis, a Nox shinobi and a seething, angry and jealous Sasuke. "We should go too." Temari advised her younger sister, receiving a nod from Cedric. "Aki-sensei is probably waiting for us to arrive," she said as she moved her sand to pick up the still unconscious Kankuro. "Hey." Sasuke called the 2. "What?" Temari asked with a frown. "I should warn you." He grinned. "That I'm far stronger than the dope." "Whatever." Temari sighed as she and Gaara along with Kankuro shunshin using wind and sand respectfully. The Uchiha gritted his teeth. "No way is the dope stringer than him. And that sword. A sword that should be wielded by him, an Uchiha, an elite. I'll bring this up to the council. They'll get me that sword," he said as he shunshin away. Naruto was reaching his apartment in the Red Zone district. He actually asked the Hokage to live there. But after stating some well-placed facts, the robe-wearing leader relented and handed him the keys to an apartment. He kept on walking and stopped and looked behind him. "You know it's not nice to sneak up on someone, right?" he asked playfully. The giggled was the reply as a Kunoichi stepped from behind one of the pillars in his direction of sight. She wore a light purple open jacket, showing her skin-tight mesh shirt that conceals her D-cup from view, and equal-colored jogging pants. Her hair was dark navy blue and reached to her lower back and 2 chin lengths framing her face. She has pale non-pupil violet eyes, and her Konoha Hitai tied comfortably around her neck. "Nothing gets past you, Naruto-kun." The Jinchuriki smiled. "How have you been, Hinata-hime?" "I've been better now," she answered. "I heard about the Chunin exams. You're in it too?" "Yeah." Naruto nodded. "Kakashi-sensei put our team in it. She believes that we're ready." "Are you?" she asked as she stepped up to him. Naruto thought for a while. "I believe we are. I also saw some of the competition." "What kind?" she asked. "I met a team from Sunagakura." "Are they strong?" The shinobi nodded. "But the middle sibling's definitely the weakest of the 3, but I wouldn't underestimate him. As for the other 2, I sense demon blood in them." "Oh really?" the Hyuga heiress whispered as she leans closer to him. "It sure is." He leaned forward. Their lips were but a hair's breadth away until Narukune's voice called from above, obviously spoiling the moment. Naruto sighed as Hinata giggled. They looked up to see Jashin looking at them with a perverted grin on her face. She wore a grey jacket with black shinobi pants. Naruto finally convinced her to wear shinobi sandals, which are grey. She took on the appearance of an 18-year-old young woman. She wore a black top that barely restrained her J-cup bust. "Care to bring this inside, Hinata?" the goddess asked sensually. Hinata wrapped her arms around the red-tinted blonde's neck. "Well, I wouldn't mind a little training." She smiled. "Too bad Hanabi's not here this time." Naruto gulped. He remembered the last training. Because his mother released a high dosage of pheromone in their midst. Since she knew of the Hyuga heiress's crush on her Sachi. But after 10 months of hiding from the Hyuga matriarch's wrath, Hiashi finally calmed down, somewhat. The Hyuga head was not only pleased for the fact that the Jinchuriki laid with both her daughters, but also the fact that her best friend caused it. So she enforced a marriage contract, much to girls' pleasure, the Hyuga elders' dismay, and Kushina's joy for looking forward to having a lot of grandkids. Naruto was so deep in his memories that he failed to realize being dragged into his apartment. If it weren't for the seals he placed in his apartment due to the demoness's instructions, civilians would not be able to sleep without wetting their beds. Naruto woke up with a stir. They were at it for hours until mid-morning. He noted the 3 weights on his chest. 3. Wait a minute. He thought as he opened his eyes and looked at the light brown hair. He gently moved his left arm, avoiding to wake the sleeping goddess, and gently passed his hand through the brown hair cascaded on his chest. "Hanabi-chan." He whispered, feeling the older heiress shifted only snuggle more to his right. The younger heiress opened her violet nun-pupil eyes and looked to her fiancé. "Narukoi." She mumbled as she looked into those blue-violet eyes of his. "Morning," she said as she yawned cutely. The younger heiress raised a bit, showing that she was wearing one of his large black shirts and no bra. If the clear view of her cup freeze wasn't enough. "What time is it?" "Morning, my firecracker." He greeted back with a peck to her forehead and looked around to see what time it was. Once he sees the time, his eyes widened. "Shit, tuck my life." He though as he sank his head back into his pillow. Tuck. 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 Was the thought going through our hero's mind. After seeing what time it was, he rushed to take a shower. He moved so quickly even Jashin did not sense it. When she woke up he was just about to step out of the apartment. He got out a half hour later after a full makeout with his 3 fiancées. And little extra for Hanabi. He reached the academy and looked around for his teammates. Luckily he spotted them at the entrance. "Hey, guys." He greeted them. "You're late." The Haruno Kunoichi yelled. "You're lucky we decided to wait for you, dope." Sasuke grunted. "Last I check you need 3 people to enter the Chunin exams." The Jinchuriki pointed out, silencing the Uchiha. The group was walking up the stairs and noted a group of other genin teams in front of a double door that was guarded by a shinobi and a kunoichi. Both standing in the way. The shinobi had short spiked with dark grey eyes. He has a tape from his jawline to the bridge of his nose and wears a leaf Hitai-8. An elbow-length grey sleeved shirt with short grey pants and shinobi sandals. He has 2 large kunai blades strapped to his back. The kunoichi has brown hair with a wide bang covering her left eye down to her chin. She has dark brown eyes and wears a leaf bandana over her forehead. She wore a dark navy short-sleeved shirt with long blue shinobi pants and dark blue sandals. She has a tanto strapped to her back and her arms crossed over her cup bust. "Come on. Just let us through." A teenage girl that looks about 17 begged as she stood in front of the 2 guards. She wears a white Chinese shirt with the sleeves reaching just past her palms. Her brown hair tied in 2 panda buns and brown chocolate eyes. She wears her Hitai-8 over her forehead and dark red baggy pants with dark brown shinobi sandals. She also has a large metal-colored scroll strapped to her back. "We're here for the Chunin exams." "No dice, buns." The kunoichi grinned. "We're just making sure that people like you don't get killed so early. Just let us past." The brunette pleaded as she attempted push through the guards. Only to be pushed back with enough force to bring her to the ground. Fortunately she was caught by her teammate. "That was very unyouthful," a male voice claimed as he helped his teammate. He wears a green spandex one-piece clothing with orange leg warmers with his Hitai-8 worn around his waist like a belt. His eyes were rounded with black pupils and a bowl-cut hairstyle and large eyebrows. "Want to do something about it?" the shinobi asked. "Well, if you put it that way," the bowl-haired genin stated as he was about to attack the door guard, but a hand stopped him there. "That's enough, Lee," a calm female voice ordered. The spandex-clad shinobi looked to his next teammate. She wore a white button shirt and short brown pants. She braided brown hair reaches to her lower back with 2 bangs framing her face. She has non-pupil pale eyes indicating her relation to the Hyuga clan. She wears her Hitai-8 over her forehead. And dark blue shinobi sandals. "Niji-san." He looked as his teammate shook her head. "Drop the game jutsu." An arrogant tone caught everyone's attention. The QB offspring was hoping that the older Uchiha sibling would have just come back to kill his teammate. But alas. You idiot. The red-tinted blonde hissed as he jabbed his teammate on the ribs with his shoulder. That genjutsu was set up to weed out the competition. HN. The Uchiha turned his head away, ignoring the throbbing in his side. Then the more should see how the great the Uchihas are. He replied. Sasuke-kun. Sakura swooned over the black-haired teen. Idiot. The Uzumaki muttered as he made his way to the stairs. Let's go, Lee, 10-10. The Hyuga advised as she and her teammates go up the stairs following Team 7. As the two teams went up the stairs they are greeted by their Jonin sensei. Kakashi was talking with a carbon copy of Lee. Only that he is older and wears a Jonin flak jacket over his spandex suit. Ah. It seems that both our teams have arrived at the same time, Kakashi. The man said with enthusiasm. She looked at the bowl-cut man. You said something, Guy. Ah. You and your hip answers. The man now known as Guy wailed, causing his team to sweat drop minus Lee. The older Jonin looked at Team 7. And you must be the current Team 7. I'm Mido Guy. Jonin sensei of Team Guy and Kanona's Green Beast. He flipped up his thumb as his teeth sparkled. Pleased to meet my rival's team. Team 7 looked at the Jonin strangely minus Naruto, who met him already. Well then Team Guy. It's time for you to show the rest of the shinobis the power of youth. The green spandex wearing Jonin preached. Hi, Guy sensei. Lee shouted. And if I don't get to strike them with the youthfulness of our strength, I will run to Iwa and back on my pinky toes. And if I fail to that I will do jumping jacks from Suna and back with chakra weights. And I fail to. We get it. Cried an annoyed bun-haired girl as she swat Lee over his head. You're gonna have us do a bunch of weird training. As if the training we were doing wasn't strange enough. Ha 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 ha. This is why I love my team. He shouted. Good luck. And with that he poofed away. Team Guy left and entered the large room. Kakashi sighed at her fellow Jonin's antics. Well guys and girl. All I can say is good luck. Look after each other's back. You're a team now and you have to work together. She leaned against the wall. Give 'em hell guys. She shunshin with the last sentence in the air. Let's get this over with. Sasuke said as he makes his way to the double door. Right, Sasuke-kun. Sakura agreed. Team 7 entered the waiting room and not to their surprise there were many shinobi in the room. Naruto can feel the kaibbing from the other villagers, especially the two Iwa teams that was staring at him intently. The Jinchuriki grinned as he let his chakra pulse to scan the entire area. Interesting. He mused as he studied the competition. He looked ahead and seized the Suna team with a conscious Kankuro. The eldest sibling smiled and winked at him. He looked to the side and sees a genin team from Odo. 2 shinobis and 1 kunoichi. One was the tallest from the 3 about 17. He wore a large beige shirt with kanji's death, slaughter and blood printed on it with black combat boots. He has black hair that defies the laws of gravity and coal-colored eyes. His hit I-8 worn on his forehead with a musical knot engraved in it. Next to him was the shortest of the team, if you consider his slouching position, also 17. His whole head was bandaged save for his right light gray-colored eye. He wears a purple shirt with sleeves well over his hands and a poncho draped over his shoulder. He wears his hit I-8 on his forehead. Naruto noted how the kunoichi stood a few inches away from them. She has coal-colored eyes and knee-length black hair that's tied by a red bow at the end. She wears a green sleeveless shirt with a pale scarf around her neck. Gray commando-like pants and black combat boots. Her Odo hit I-8 worn over her forehead. She's at least a year older than him. Naruto picked up a scent better yet sense from the Odo nins and mentally scowl. Gonna have to keep some eyes on those two. He planned as he severed the room some more. He then sensed a type of chakra similar to his own 3 of them. There are 3 others like me and Gaara. I sense Chaume, Isanate and Matatabi. His mother added. He locked onto the closest one. She has caramel tanned skin and non-pupil orange eyes. She had mint green hair with an orange clip on the right. She wears a wide armored apron over a white top shirt with white shorts and mesh clothing beneath them. She also wears a hit I-8 with Antiple's arrow pointing down tied around her right bicep, indicating her allegiance to Tokigakure. Naruto noted that she keeps to herself away from her 2 other teammates. The next one he spotted is also a kunoichi, but she's from Kurigakure. Her skin is pale and has brown eyes. Her hair is dark green and reaches to her shoulders. Her hit I-8 was tied around her neck. She wears a blue shirt with short dark blue pants. Next to her was a teenage boy around 18 or so. He has blue hair that's short and ruffled and light brown eyes with rectangle framed glasses. He wore a yellow vertically stripped shirt and with a small jacket and headphones around his neck. He wore baggy blue pants and his Kurigakure hit I-8 was stitched to his right leg. On his back was strangely shaped sword with 2 handles wrapped in bandages. You can see the small shark teeth in his mouth due to them not being able to be concealing behind his lips. Next to him was a masked person. Naruto can tell by the scent that masked individual is indeed female. She wore a blue and brown kimono with slits on the side for leg movement. Dark brown hair with bun-shaped cloth and 2 bangs framing her face. He noted the holder pack on her thigh that was too thin for kunais. He looked to left and noted the kumonins. All 3 was female. One had spiked red hair that reached to her middle back and looks about 16 and chocolate tan skin. She wore the standard kumo attire. A white shirt under the black jacket with a mesh shirt under it. She wore dark gray shinobi pants and black shinobi sandals. Her topaz-colored eyes study the other competition. Her kumo hitai worn over her head as a bandana. The second kunoichi had blonde hair was tied in a ponytail that's about 18. She wore a kumo hitai over her forehead. She wears a purple long-sleeved shirt with a dark lavender jacket over it, holding back her teacup bust. She wore dark-colored pants that are taped to her shins and dark lavender shinobi sandals. Her eyes were green and nearly slitted pupils. "That's Matatabi's host," the Kyuubi stated. "I recognize that Yaki signature from anywhere." "You sure, Kasan?" the Jinchuriki asked his mother. "Let's just say we had a little thing going." Naruto could tell that his mother was blushing. "I won't bother for details." He thought back as he looked at the third kunoichi of the Kumo team. She has cream pale skin and wore a short-sleeved V-neck gray shirt with a mesh shirt that did nothing to conceal a decent portion of her E-cup cleavage. She looks to be about 19 years. Her pants were shin length and she wears a tanto strapped horizontally to her lower back. She has pale blonde hair cut short to her neck with a chin-length frame. Her ice green eyes were also looking at the other chunin to be. Naruto was studying the other genins when he felt a pair of eyes staring at him intently. He turned and met a pair of golden cat-like eyes, almost predatory. The young woman is about 15 and light tanned skin and short black skiked hair with a single braid down to her left collarbone. She wore a large white shirt with black knee-length pants. She wore a hitai on her left bicep. The symbol was an incomplete circle with a dot in the middle. On the left were a 2 spiked sprung and a single one on the other. The Jinchuriki noted the long and large staff-like cloth with a pointed edge on the ground. Next to her was an older girl, maybe about 17. She wears an orange robe shirt with shin-length gray-brown pants. She has orange shin-length hair and dark purple eyes. On her wrists she wears 1-inch wristbands and on her ankles. Her hitai worn around her neck. She seems to be ignoring her teammate. Said teammate is a shinobi with blonde hair and black faded on the sides. He wore a brown shirt with a strap on it. His eyes were honeydew brown and a sort of a handle could be seen over his left shoulder. He wears black slacks and combat boots. His hitai worn over his forehead. And all that in a span of 30 seconds. "Naruto-kun." A female voice yelled as said person felt a weight on his back. "Hello, Ino-chan." The Kyuubi offspring greeted. Ino is your regular platinum blonde teen. She has non-pupil sky blue eyes with a bang over the right one. Her ponytail reaches to her lower back. She wears a purple no-back high-cut shirt showing her flat stomach and purple navel piercing shaped like a 4-pointed diamond. She wears thigh-length purple shorts allowing her creamy legs to be viewed. She wears her hitai around her waist. "Troublesome, you're here too." A lazy voice drawled. A lightly tanned teen about 16 years old walked to the small group with one hand in his pocket and the other scratching the back of his head. He wore a short-sleeved gray shirt with a small green jacket over it. Long gray pants and shinobi sandals colored dark blue. He has light brown eyes and his black hair tied in a short pineapple top. His hitai worn around his right bicep. Next to him was a healthy-looking kunoichi with 2 swirl-like markings on her cheeks. She has shoulder-length orange-brown hair tied in a spiked ponytail. She wears a white shirt with the kanji eat on it. With a long-sleeved jacket worn over it. Short brown pants and blue shinobi sandals and a bag of chips in her hand. "Hey, Shikamaru, Chaoji." The red-tinted blonde greeted them. "Hey Naruto." Chaoji greeted while Shikamaru sighed. "Yahoo! You guys are here too." A male teen shouted. He has short wild brown hair and slitted black eyes. A fang-like marking on each cheek marking his kinship to the Inizuka clan. He wears a large coat with fur collar and baggy pants with dark-colored ninja sandals. Next to him was a pony-sized dog with white fur and brown flopped ears. "It may seem so," a monotonous voice claimed. A teen clad in a gray shirt under a green long-coated hoodie. He wears oval with a scarf over his lower face and nose. He wears a gray pants with a satchel and dark blue shinobi sandals. "Greetings, Naruto-san." Naruto nodded at the near unidentifiable teen. "Hey Shino." "Naruto-kun." Hinata greeted her fiancé. "Hey, Hina-chan. I see that you made it in time." The Hyuga heiress nodded and smiled. "Hey Naruto." A female called as said person turned. It was the bun-haired girl. "Ah, Ten-chan." Glad you could make it. Thanks to your youthful teammate. The green-clad shinobi said loudly with a sighing Neji holding the bridge of her nose. Hello, Hinata-sama, Naruto-sama. She greeted politely. Neji-chan, we've been through this. The QB offspring smiled. Naruto is fine. Hi. The Hyuga member replied. Naruto noted the small hint of shyness in her voice. Alright. He smiled. So you think that fawning over the dead last will get Sasuke-kun jealous, will ya? The Haruno Kunoichi asked her rival. Shut it forehead. Ino frowned at her ex-best friend. And I wondered how the hell she became a Kunoichi. Kiba muttered with Hinata giggling at her teammate's antics. That's not nice, Kiba-kun. Hinata lectured her teammate. What? The Inyazuka heir said with a raised eyebrow. Even Yakumo-chan's better than her. He said. I agree with that logic. Shino muttered stoically. I just hope you don't piss her off in the future when she become your wife. Naruto joked. At least I'm the one engaged to both Eris and a goddess that kill you just a snap of her finger. Kiba grinned. Well, at least my mom didn't walk in on me and his lover doing the horizontal polka. Naruto grinned at his friend's red-faced expression, causing the Konoha 12 to laugh, minus Sakura and Sasuke. Hell, even Shino allowed a small chuckle to slip past his lips. I think you guys made enough noises as is. A male said as he made his presence known to the Konoha 12. He wears a dark blue rimmed glasses over coal-colored eyes. He has white hair tied in a low ponytail with his hit eye over his forehead. He wears a white shirt under a purple sleeveless shirt and a purple long pants with shinobi sandals worn on his feet. Who are you? Sasuke asked arrogantly. Ikushi Kabuto. The young man introduced himself. I must say that you've gained the attention of the entire room. He said as he motioned with his hand to the other occupants. Is that right? Naruto with a feral grin on his face looking as the other occupants glaring and leaking some kai at the Konoha group. The newborn S-Revor can deal better killing intent than these piffles. Jashin commented to her fiancé's mind. A handful of seasoned veterans with wet spots and brown stains are proof of that. So, Yakushi-san. Any tips you can give us? Naruto asked. Well, I have been through the Chunin exams already quite a few times. The older genin answered. How much times? Ino asked, now standing next to her blonde crush. About 7 times. Kabuto said with an embarrassed scratch behind his head. Then you don't deserve to be a shinobi o the leaf. Sasuke grinned. Kabuto tried very hard not to kill the Uchiha here and kept a nervous smile. Yeah, I guess. He sighed. But during my times I've been able to gather data from some of the occupants in this room. He then took out a deck of cards. The back were blue with a purple oval in the center, while the front were blank. If I knew you were gonna bring some trading cards game, then a blank deck would be nothing against my tailed beast deck. Naruto grinned. Well, if I did my reptilian deck, we would have seen. Kabuto smiled. The FFT, please. My Cerberus degree would make you decks into dog chow. Kiba gloated. We're getting off topic here. The pink-haired genin screeched, prompting both Kiba and Naruto to wince. That girl's voice even reached in here, a raspy female voice shouted in disbelief. Anyway. Kabuto cleared his throat. These are my info cards. They hold information concerning whichever target I have and whoever you're interested in. He explained. Anyone, huh? Naruto muttered and thought for a while. Alright. Sabaku no Gara. Rock Lee. Sasuke added. DCH. You already know their names. He sighed. That makes things easier. He pulled 2 blank cards and pumped some his chakra into them. While the spectacled genin was relaying the info of the 2 targets. The genin team from Jangirugakure was studying the team 7. While the black-haired girl was studying the red-tinted blonde. Be strong. She mused, catching her 2 teammates' attention. What do you mean, Mikoto? The orange-haired Kunoichi asked. Definitely strong. She added. Well, the Uchihas are said to be the strongest. Almost on par to the Hyugas, the blonde teammate commented. I'm talking about the red-tinted blonde Tate. Mikoto said calmly. The FT. Tate snorted. Him? Oh, please. He looks like the dope to me. He laughed. I bet he failed his exams twice and got some special assignment to pass to be genin. Probably kissed face of every teacher in his academy. It would be wise not to judge by appearance. The orange-haired Kunoichi suggested. Come on, Mai-chan. Tate sighed. Even Mikoto's stronger than him. He smiled. So about that date. Before Mai could say anything to her male teammate, the Odo team rushed to Kabuto. But they were intercepted by Tenten, Lee and Naruto. Tenten holding 2 serrated kunai to the black-haired genin. Lee holding the bandaged one in an arm lock. And Naruto with his red blade cancelling the Kunoichi side. This blade is under a game jutsu. The Jinchuriki thought. Suddenly a puff of smoke erupted at the end of the classroom. When in dissipated, a group of jonin were there with a tall man reaching about 6 feet 2 at the front. He wears a blue shirt under a black leather long-sleeved trench coat and black pants with steel-toed combat boots. He wears black bandana over his head and his face had a few scars. He has dark coal eyes and they were narrowed at the group before him. "Okay, you maggots, listen up," he shouted. "My name is Marino Ibiki and I will be the proctor for your first exam. And this will be your first and last warning to the sound team. Talk up like that again and we'll personally kick your asses out. Is that understood?" "Yes, sir." They nodded. "Good." He looked as they Genins disarmed themselves. "Now you will be assigned to your seats." "Welcome to my playground," a female voice announced. "Training ground number 44. Aka, the Forest of Death." She wore a full-body mesh suit that stopped above her knees and a tan trench coat over it with pale brown miniskirt. Her purple hair was tied in a pineapple fashion and a predatory glint in her non-pupil brown eyes. "My name is Mitarashi Anko and I will be the proctor for this exam. This will be interesting." Naruto grinned. "Alright kids, these are the rules." The Jonin said as she pulled out 2 scrolls. One was black and a brown wide band around it with the kanji earth etched into it. The second scroll was white with a wide blue band around it with kanji heaven on it. If you're not blind then you can see that these are the heaven and earth scrolls. You'll need these to get past the second part of this exam. And as I've said before, this group will be cut in half. 27 teams. That's 81 Genins. She looked at the Genins. This will be a 5-day survival test. Each team get a heaven or an earth scroll. Meaning you have to fight another team to get the opposite. I'll be calling each team forward to that private tent and get your scrolls. Once the timer starts you'll be getting yourselves in a hell of place. She then pulls out a large stack of pamphlets. "These papers will be signed by you kids in case you die we don't get blamed." "What if we don't sign these papers?" a Genin from Taki asked. "Then you and your team get disqualified." She grinned. "Alright kiddies, get to your posts." "What about food?" Choiji asked as she ate a bag of chips. "Cannibalism is allowed, unless it is needed," Anko answered with a shrug. Team 7 was standing by their assigned fence door. Naruto opted that he carries the heaven scroll that they got from a Chunin. Anko was looking at her watch. "Alright brats, begin." And the Chunin to be were off. The team from Kusagakure were running at low Chunin speed. "You have your targets, now go." The middle one commanded as the 2 on the side dashed off in 2 separate directions. "Soon your body will be mine, Sasuke-kun." Team 7 were sitting in a triangular formation. Sasuke just mentioned a plan and a password to know rather the teammate was a fake or the real deal. "So do you get the password?" the Uchiha asked his teammates who nodded in return. "Alright." Naruto sensed a spike of chakra a good distance away from them and suddenly the wind picked up. Team 7 was suddenly assaulted by a high wind technique. Naruto, being in the epicenter, was blown clean off from his teammates. "Shit. The dope got blown away." Sasuke cursed as he surveyed the area. "Fufufufufufu, so the great Uchiha Sasuke is in my presence. I am honored." A female voice said as said figure crawled out of the ground a few feet away from them. She wears a beige-colored shirt with black pants and shinobi sandals with a large purple rope tied in a bow tie fashion around her waist. Her eyes were dark gray and glossy black hair. She wears a kusa hitai over her forehead. "Who are you?" Sasuke asked. "My name is of no importance. I just came to test what great Uchiha can do." "Well, you're in luck." Sasuke grinned. "I have a lot of pent-up aggression I need vent on." "You vent your anger on me in my room on the bed," Sakura thought heatedly. Sasuke involuntarily shivered. "Well, whatever you are, I'll beat you anyway." Sasuke grinned as he went into his Yojeki Kaiken, interceptor fist, stance. "Oh?" the Kusa Genin taunted as she rushed forward. Naruto was laying on his back. A few scratches here and there that are currently healing. A few leaves in his hair and some twigs. And large branch pierced through his chest. "Duke." He groaned as he yanked the offending piece of nature out of his ribsage. A clear view of his now healing and beating heart. The wounds closes as he stands and looks around. "The hell am I?" he questioned as he looks at the large tree trunks in his surroundings. "You okay, Sachi?" Kushina asked her son. "I'm fine, Kasan." He smiled. His mother looked after him since birth. Even though she's sealed in him. His thought was stopped as he sensed a chakra signal not very far from here. "Sachi?" "I sense it too. I'll check it out. I'm pretty sure whoever separated us just wants to fight. That chakra signature's beyond that of a Genin. Shouldn't you help them at least?" "I'm pretty sure that they'll be okay," he said, hoping that the QP would agree with him. "Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. You will send help to them, so help me. Okay. He did not want an angry mother raging in his stomach. He bit thumb and performed the needed hand signs Kuchius no Jutsu, summoning jutsu. A large poof of red smoke appeared before the QP offspring. "Oh? The kid finally called us?" An older female voice said soothingly. Finally, some human air. Another female added, this one was younger. The smoke cleared up and the two summoning were standing before the Jinchuriki. One was a caramel-tanned woman about her mid-20s. She has neck-length gray hair with black ends that spikes at the ends and dark gold eyes with oval pupils. An vertical oval on her forehead and res claw-like marks on both of her cheeks. She wears a dark gray-purple corset that bounds her E-cup bust, with 3 small belts holding them together under an equal-colored short jacket, showing her slim smooth stomach. She wore very shorts to her that shows a bit of her cheeks. In her left hand was a small rack that held 3 katanas. One with a blue hilt and a blue scabbard. One with a yellow hilt and a yellow scabbard. And the last one with a red hilt and a red scabbard. She wears black shoes. Hello, boy. The older female greeted the Jinchuriki huskily. The second summoning was younger. At least 14 or 15 years old of age. She has yellow hair tied in 5 separated thick ponytails with black ends. She wore a sleeveless skin-tight black suit that reached to her knees with a small red jacket over it. She has red eyes that looked at her summoning with glee and joy. Her skin was light tanned and 2 bangs framing her face. She wears black sneakers with wide edges. Her hands were in black fingerless gloves. In her grip was silver staff with a crown-like top at end with a 10-inch handle atop of it. Hi, Naru-chan. She greeted cheerily. Hey Saya. Hello Xiaomu. The QB offspring greeted. Accepting the chaste kiss on the lips from the tanned summon and giving a kiss on the forehead to the younger one. Why do I get a kiss on the forehead? Xiaomu pouted. Until you're older. The tanned vixen grinned showing her small canines. It's still not fair. The red-eyed girl said somberly. Tell you what. Naruto offered. If you help my teammates with whatever situation they got their face in, I'll give you kiss smack dab on the lips. With tongue? She asked shyly. Naruto nodded. Will you grab my ass? She smiles. Naruto sighed but nodded hesitantly. Yahoo! She cheered. Operation Naruto's Cavern Invasion begin. And the young female dashed off to surprisingly the direction of his teammates. Saya chuckled. I'll make she doesn't go too far. She looked at Naruto with glazed eyes. I would like a reward too. And with that she dashed off after Xiaomu. Sachi, do you sense that? Kushina asked her son. Naruto looked and let his chakra pulsed. Yeah. Let's go check it out. Perrin was having a problem. Okay, a big problem. Get away from me. The kunoichi was wearing a purple shirt with cream shorts. Rectangle glasses over her light red eyes. Her kusa hit I-8 worn on her forehead and dark blue shinobi sandals. She has red hair with half unkempt and the other half smoother down. She dodged a swipe from a sofa-sized paw of a bear. The force was enough to send her crashing into a tree. A few scratches and bruises but nothing some healing salves would do. If she survives, that is. She looked up to see her would-be killer. The large bear, roughly double the size of a regular one with abnormal large paws. It was brown with light brown patches on its back, rump and face, and it was foaming in the mouth. It was surprisingly fast enough to catch up to young Genin. Leave me alone. She thought in fear. The bear reached within striking distance and swung for the kill. Karen closed her eyes awaiting the death blow. Only to hear the beast roar in pain. Man, the seals in this forest must have messed with this one's genetics. Naruto commented. Karen looked at the teen in front of her. He looked about 16 years. Red-tinted blonde hair and violet blue eyes. He wore a black shirt with a red sleeveless haori over it. Black shinobi pants and combat boots worn. He wore his hit I-8. On his right arm there's tattoo with the kanji Mitsu and his right-left Hitatsu. Around his neck he wears a pendant, a circle with an inverted triangle and a claw around it. In his hand was red-bladed katana with a black handle, the guard taking the shape of a fox's head with blade acting as its sharp tongue. Naruto quickly pulled the blade out, grabbed the red head and jumped out of the way, just as another pod slammed down where they stood. You okay? He asked as he sets the kusanin to stand. Perrin nodded. Thanks. Thank me later. Let me get rid of this thing. He said as he gave the beast his attention. What about your teammates? Dead? She said somberly. The Jinchuriki nodded. Alright. The bear getting annoyed of such a small person wounding it and spoiling its dinner. The bear rushed at the two teens. Its maw open and teeth in full view. Let's get out of here. The redhead yelled. I'll get rid of this bear first. We can't have it chasing after us. He said as he set himself in an II form. Just one shot. He muttered. Take calming breaths, see the enemy and yourself. See the weak spot and exploit it. Use its anger as your tool. And cut down. Kushina grinned. Naruto dashed to the bear and drew out his katana in a quick motion. He slashed at the bear and was standing behind it, both not moving an inch even as the wind blows by. Karen watched in amazement at the teen. Said teen was slowly sheathing his katana into the scabbard. Shimshutsu FK, quick draw. Vanishing wind. A click was in the silent area and a large gash appeared on the bear's chest to the lower abdomen. The beast fell down in its own pool of blood. Eren stood there awed at the display of the Jinchuriki's power. Naruto looked and smiled at the Kusa-kunoichi, earning a small blush from her. "Thanks," she said with a bow. "My name is Karen. Kusagakure Kunoichi. Uzumaki Naruto. Kahana-Hagakure Shinobi. Pleased to meet you," he greeted. "But why did you save me?" she asked with a sudden serious face. "You wouldn't just save me on a whim. If did save you on a whim you would be tied up and left alone for the other animals in this forest by now." He grinned. "So you don't want anything?" she asked. "Besides getting out of this overgrown playground?" He raised a brow. "Live. What about you?" "Well, since my teammates are dead," she sighed. "I'm out of this exam. You can come with me," he offered. "Excuse me?" She placed her hands on her hips and frowned. "You can come with me," he repeated. "The animals here won't think twice to eat a person. So you'll come with me. I'll keep you safe from." But before he can finish his sentence the bear suddenly shot at him but stopped at mid-swing, the claw inches away from his face. He looked with a surprised expression. Not that the bear stood up and tried to kill him. "Chakra chains," he mumbled. Naruto and Karen arrived at small field with a hollowed-out tree. The Jinchuriki noted the destruction in the field, a trench at least 10 meters wide and go ahead by at least 50. "What happened here?" Karen asked, looking around for any traps. "You've been gone for a day and you came with another girl," Saya commented as she stepped out into the open. Naruto sighed. "What happened here?" "I'll show." She performs some hand signs and places her hand on her mate's forehead. Kitsune no Kenkai, Fox's view. Flashback. "Gonna kiss, Naruto. Gonna invade his mouth. Gonna reach past his tonsils," Xiaomu chanted. Saya sighed at the younger Kitsune's rambling. "Xiaomu." Saya called the younger. "Hi," she answered. "We're arriving pretty close. I sense Narukun's teammates and 4 others," she reported. The two arrived and looked a scene of the Odo Genin against the Team 7 and Rock Lee. Lee was on the ground bleeding from his ears and losing consciousness. Sakura was facing the Genin with his anti-gravity black hair. The Uchiha was knocked out inside the hole of the tree. "Zaku. Above you," the bandaged nin warned his partner. Saya was partially impressed. The Pinkat managed to catch the Odo nin off guard by stabbing him in the arm and biting down the next. But ended as the Kunoichi grabbed her hair, pulled her back and kicked her away. Saya sighed. If only she didn't waste time caring for her hair. The Kunoichi pulled out several senbon needles. "Any last words?" "You're not getting, Sasuke-kun," Sakura yelled as she stood up in a defensive pose. "I hate fangirls." The Kunoichi sighed. "Your corpse will make a good example for the others to straighten up." And with that note she tossed the senbons, aimed at her vitals. Before the senbons hit their target, Saya intercepted them and blocked them with her rack of sheeted swords. Now, that wasn't nice, little girl." She smiled. The sound Kunoichi quickly drew out a dozen senbon per hands and was about to throw them. "Don't move," Xiaomu said in a cold tone, holding the tipped edge to the Kunoichi's throat. The black-haired Kunoichi sucked her teeth and raised her hand slowly to show that she would not be a threat. "Kin, you asshole, you got caught," Zaku yelled. Said the one who got his ass kicked by the weakest. Kin shot back, earning a tap to her throat. "After I'm done with these two I'll be busy making you scream my name," Zaku growled. The bandaged shinobi was about to move until he felt a blade to the back of his neck. "I suggest you give the scrolls and be on your way," Saya said with smile. "You don't want to lose your head now, do you?" "Osu?" The bandage looked to his teammate and nodded. Said shinobi nodded and without hesitation shot a pressured airwave at the two females. Xiaomu saw this and moved out of the way, but Kin got hit right in her chest and was sent to a tree. The bandaged nin quickly swung back to backhand the tan vixen, but she avoided and jumped back to the younger's side. "You okay?" Saya asked. "Yeah." The blonde nodded. "But that Odo Kunoichi got hit hard. It'd be a miracle that she would conscious after that. Those assholes attacked their own teammates." Saya growled. "We can kill them," the tanned female suggested. Xiaomu sensed a chakra pulse behind her and looked. She tapped on the taller female's shoulder and pointed once she got the attention. "I think you should leave that for him." Uchiha Sasuke was standing. Purple chakra swirling around him like living flames. Sharingan blazing and orange-like marking was spreading through his body. The markings stopped spreading and dimmed down, showing black flamed patterns on his left face, arm and legs to his shin. So this is what he meant by power. The avenging Uchiha asked no one in particular as he looked around. He spotted the Odo Genin, Rock Lee's unconscious body and a bruised Sakura. "Sakura, who did this to you?" I Sakura looked at her crush. "That would be me," Zaku gloated. "Idiot." Stepping into his own grave. Saya, Xiaomu and Dosu thought at the same time. Is that so? The Uchiha asked with an amused grin. Damn straight. Dai Zankyuha. Grand decapitating sound wave. He sends out a massive wave of pressured air and chakra. The attack went on for a full 10 seconds until it receded and the sound genin looked to his work. That was surprisingly cool. Saya admit while holding both Rock Lee and a now knocked Sakura. Meh. Xiaomu said as she reappeared next to the older vixen with an unconscious kin in her arms. Sasuke laughed hysterically. So this is power. With this I can finally kill that bis. Let me go you sick tuck. Zaku yelled as he was struggling against the Uchiha hold. His arms were bent back and being pulled as a foot was on his back. I almost forgot about you, insect. He said with a maniacal gleam in his eyes. But think you're a bit too attached to these arms. Let me think. He tilted his head to the side and looked up as if thinking of a solution. Oh, I know. He smiled. I'll loosen them up for you. He began pulling on the arms and applied pressure to his back. Stop. Dosu yelled seeing his partner's shoulders going past their limit. Just take the scroll and leave us. He begged. I don't think so. And with that Konoha's last pulled the Odo Genin's arms until they popped and cracked out of place. Zaku screamed in pure pain and agony as he was flailing on the ground. You bis. You mother-tucking bis. He cursed in anger and pain. I'll kill you. A kick to his temple silenced him. Dosu rushed to the Uchiha and delivered a swift swing using his weapon arm. Sasuke ducked and kicked him in the throat with enough force to his Adam apple. Dosu fell with his eye rolled back. The Uchiha watched as the bandaged nin struggled to breath. So you're still alive? He placed his foot on his throat. I'll fix that too. He then pressed down hard and broke his neck through crushing it. Assholes. Sasuke looked at the downed genin with a bored expression. So who's next? He looked around and noticed the vixens. He walked to them while studying their appearance, mostly Saya. You seem like a strong woman. He stated. Strong enough to breed powerful Uchiha offsprings. Saya raised a brow. Is that so? Of course. The Uchiha grinned as he walked to the two kitsunes. I can see that you are strong. Very strong. So I will take you so you can bear my children and the Uchiha will once again be the mightiest in Konoha. When he was done talking was standing right in front of them. You should feel honored to bear my children. He began to walk away. Come on. No. Saya said. The Uchiha stopped in mid-step and turned his head to her. What? Saya didn't flinch. I said no. Besides I already have a lover. Whoever he is, you're definitely wasting your time with him. Sasuke snorted. You're better off with an Uchiha. The elites. He stated. Now come. He said in a more demanding tone. Xiaomu remained silent as she set Kin down. Preparing for anything that Konoha's last Uchiha would dish out. I'm not sorry. I reject, she grinned. Cheating is something worse than death. Sasuke growled and turned. Then I'll just take you here and now. Xiaomu held her staff ready for combat. If you try anything. She threatened. I'll handle this, Xiaomu. Saya sighed as she placed the pinket and the green beast on the ground and walked forward. Uchiha scowled. How dare this woman turn his down. He was gonna show who the boss is. He used his speed and was behind Saya ready to knock her and have his way. Only for the older woman to knock in the stomach with her rack of blades. Sasuke was sent back by the force, Saya right in front of him drawing the red katana from its sheath. NFK Nenshim Sarasu, sword-style burning slash. The tanned female muttered as she swings down her blade, burning in fire onto the Uchiha, cutting his chest and burning at the same time. Sasuke's mouth was open, but no sound was coming out. He fell to ground with his rolled back. The black flamed mark receding to his neck where a mark with 3 Tama marks are. Saya sheathed her blade and glared at the Uchiha. The only to touch me like that will be my mate. She looked to the younger. Let's get these guys some med. Bury the bandage boy and tend to the carrot head's arms. Okay. Saya said sadly. There goes my reward. She mumbled earning a small giggle from the older vixen. Flashback end. Naruto was not happy about this. The bastard tried to rape you. He growled. I'm stronger than him and you know it. Saya said soothingly to calm him down. He need his teammate to get through this part of the exam. Naruto sighed. She was right. And that Kin girl. She's still asleep. Saya reported. A bruised chest and back. Even her vitals are normal. How's Xiaomu? Asleep. Saya smiled. She's kinda down though. That's alright. A promise is a promise. He moved to the side and motioned Karen to step forward. This is Karen. She a Kunoichi from Kusagakure. She'll be going with us to the tower. Name's Saya. Pleased to meet you. Saya smiled. Likewise. Karen answered with a small smile. Alright girls. Get some rest. We'll head to the tower tomorrow. The next morning the group of was traveling to the tower. Naruto had his clones carry the unconscious shinobi. Karen looked ahead and saw the tower in sight. "There it is," she said. "We're finally here." Naruto sighed as he and the group landed in front of the tower's front door. And only 3 days to spare. He grinned then looked at Saya and Xiaomu. "Thanks girls. I. You better." Saya said as she wrapped her arms around the red-tinted blonde's shoulder and kissed him deeply, the redhead feeling a twitch of jealousy. "You keep practicing that tongue of yours, alright." And with that poofed away to her land. "Xiaomu?" Naruto smiled at the younger vixen. "Yes, Naru-kun?" she asked with her head down. Said QB offspring walked to her, pulled her clothes and planted a kiss on her lips. She moaned as she felt his tongue brushed for entrance. She opened her mouth and allowed the muscles to dance in the oral caverns. Xiaomu squealed in the kiss once Naruto squeezed her backside softly. They pulled away needing the air to breath. "That was amazing," she said with clouded eyes. "We have to do that again." She poofed away. Naruto smiled. "A promise is a promise." He then looked to a red-faced Karen. "Well. Let's go inside. I'll explain everything to you." And on that note the group went into the tower. Looking forward for what they got in store. Naruto plopped down on his bed. He had met Lee's teammates just he and his company. He also managed to report to the Hokage and Iruka. That was 2 days ago. He was just relaxing until there was a knock on the door. "Come in," he said. The door opened and Kin walked in. "Hey," she greeted. "Hey." He greeted back as he sat up. "How are you feeling?" "I'm better thanks," Kin said as she sat by the desk. "I heard what happened." The Jinchuriki remained silent. "So what are you gonna do?" "My Jonin sensei's trying to get me and Zaku to be in the preliminaries. His arms are busted," he pointed out. "But he's a stubborn ass." She sighed. "By the way." She pointed to an occupied bed, a person under covers showing red hair. "Why is she here?" "Sleeping." Karen mumbled as she turned and looked to the Oto Kunoichi. "Jealous?" She grinned. "No." Kin answered a bit too quickly. "Good." The redhead yawned as she stretched and got out of the bed. She was wearing a lacy butterfly-patterned purple bra holding her cup bust and hip-hugging thigh-length black shorts. Kin scoffed at how the Kunoichi was dressed. "Can you be any provocative?" "As a Kunoichi even our bodies are weapons," Karen said in a lectured tone. Kin rolled her eyes. "Whatever." A seal appears in the room and Jashin raised from it. "Naruto." Jashin smiled as she walked to her groom. "Hey, Ja-chan." He got up and gave her a peck on the cheek. "So you have 2 more mates, huh?" She grinned at the 2 Kunoichi, who both blushed. "I just met them." He smiled. "I'm not gonna be like some dirtbag and jump the bed with them right off the bat. And that is why I love you." The goddess turned to the 2 Kunoichis. "My name is Jashin. Goddess of blood and destruction. Manifestation of chaos. I'm also one of Narukun's fiancé." After hearing the introduction the 2 genin stared in shock. Looking from a grinning Jashin to a smiling Naruto with gaping mouths and wide eyes. "You're engaged to a goddess?" Karen said still in shock. "A demon gods?" Kin asked. "Yeah." Naruto grinned. "What else?" Kin asked slightly calmed down. "Well I'm also, forcefully, engaged to both Hyuga Hinata and Hyuga Hinabi. One of the Konoha 12 has a crush on me. And I have crush on the bun-haired girl from Guy Sensei's team. Don't forget about Niji's crush on you too," Jashin added. The Jinchuriki sighed as the females laugh. The genins were standing in the first floor of the tower. Naruto looked around and counted the team. Taki, 3, Kumo, 3, Kiri, 3, Suna, 3, Konoha, 15, Tsum, Claw, 3, Odo, 2, Iwa, 3. 35 participants. That's one hell of job. The Tsum shinobi thought. Anko grinned at the survivors. The Takebetsu Jonin was actually surprised at the amount of survivors. "Alright kids." Anko shouted gaining their attention. "It seems like we'll be having a preliminary match for you guys." Some of the genin were talking in protest, but another voice quickly silenced them. "There is a reason for that." An aged male voice said. A large poof of smoke proofed before them and they were at least 5 people. The man in the center stepped forward. He wore a large cream robe with a pointed 4-corner hat on his head. One of the sides being red with the kanji fire on it. His skin was light leather tanned with a liver spot below his left eye. His dark brown eyes scouting through the genins and he smiled at them. "Greetings genin of various villages and welcome to Konohagakure. I am Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Hokage of this village." He turned to one of the jonin that came with him and nodded to him. A young man about his late 20s stepped forward. He wore a bandana type hit I-8 with his light brown eyes hanging at the sides and had bags under his brown eyes. He wears the regular jonin attire. Long-sleeved dark navy shirt with a Jonin flak jacket over it and dark navy shinobi pants and dark blue shinobi sandals. "Thank you, cough, Hokage-sama," the Jonin said with a cough. "My name is Jikohei. We will now, cough, have some eliminating match to shorten, cough, the list of occupants for the finals, coughs." He covers his mouth as he gets in a coughing fit, then clears his throat. "We will begin immediately. If anyone does not want to partake in this, you can leave now." The Budo raised his hand. "I'm afraid I can't go on. My team and I went through a lot. So to avoid further damage to my body, I'll concede from these matches." He spectacled Genin explained with a "I'm sorry" expression. Heiei pulled out a list and nodded. "Yukushi Kabuto," said Genin nodded. "Alright, you can go." The Budo nodded and glanced to the QP container. As he walked out of the room he grinned while fixing his glasses. "Okay, now that the rest of who remains we will begin." Heiei turned to Anko and nodded. The snake mistress nodded and turned. "Open it." Above the wall between the two stoned hands in ram hand signs a screen opened and start randomizing through words of the competitor. "The names will be selected at random," the Jonin explained. "The matches will end unless either or both fighters cannot continue the fight, one is dead or I intervene once I clearly see who the winner is. And then the two names are selected. Equals Uchiha Sasuke vs Akato Yoroi, same as canon equals. Winner Uchiha, Sasuke," Heiei announced. "Alright Sasuke-kun." Sakura cheered. The Uchiha grunted as he fell back. "Only to be held by one knee. I think falling in your condition would hurt more than you think," Kakashi commented while reading her favorite orange book. "Let's take care of that seal, shan't we?" HN. With that the Konoha Scarecrow and the Avenger left via Shunshin. The next match was decided. Equals Sabaku no Kankuro vs Tsurugi Misumi, same as canon equals. Winner Sabaku no Kankuro, Heiei announced. "I guess he's not as pathetic as I thought." Naruto grinned. "Maybe I should give him some pointers." Equals Sabaku no Tamari vs Tenten. Equals AN. "I enjoyed writing this one. I turned to shine." Tamari grinned as she walked onto the open floor. "So I'm against the Suna Kunoichi," Tenten said as she landed in front of her opponent. "Let's finish this," Tamari announced as she pulled out her weapon from behind her. Tenten went onto a battle stance. "Hajime," the proctor yelled as he jumped back. Tamari suddenly shifted her head to the side as something nicked her left cheek. The Suna Kunoichi looked at her opponent who had her arm stretched out. She whipped a small trickle of blood from her cheek, the wound healing slowly and completely. "So that's why you're wearing those long sleeves." She then swung her fan making a small gust knocking away another object. Said object was sticking to the ground and she quickly inspected it with her eyes. It was a small black blade, about an inch wide and 3 inches long. The handle was 2.5 inches wide and shaped like an arrow's head. Tamari looked at the bun-haired Kunoichi. And smiled as she revealed the first moon in her fan. "3 moons," she said. "When you see all 3 moons, you lose." "Let's find out then." The bun-haired brunette challenged as she tossed a few dozen blades at the sandy blonde Kunoichi. Tamari simply grinned as she swung her fan once again. The blades scattered to the ground and a few flew back at Tenten. Tenten stepped away from the path and grabbed few of them before they passed her. She quickly turned and tossed them again. Tamari opened her fan to the second moon and used it as a shield. Tamari struggled against the onslaught and jumped to the side. Time to end this," she said as she readied her fan and swung hard. Fueton. K's no comma, wind release. Wind sickle. Asuna Kunoichi swung her fan and a large gust of wind at the Konohinin. Tenten placed her large scroll in front of her, quickly formed some hand signs, and pumped some chakra into it. Inpu. Sukrumru Kabe, ninja art. Scroll wall. She held the scroll as it grew and expanded like a wall, blocking the dangerous wind technique. After the attack subsided the scroll returned to its original size and 2 scrolls poofed out of it and onto the bun-haired Kunoichi's hand. "She gonna use that technique?" Lee asked with shock clear in his voice. "I believe she will." Niji nodded as she looked at her teammate preparing her move. Inpu. Shisharyu, ninja art. Twin rising dragons. Tenten leaped into the air, the scrolls fluttering alongside her. She then engulfed in large smoke cloud. The first weapon that the Suna Kunoichi dodged was a 5-meter diameter iron ball with spikes. "What the hell?" the dirty blonde muttered as she watched the large wrecking ball of doom. She then looked up and see the airborne Konoha Genin, surrounded by a very large array of weapons of different forms and sizes. And they were raining right towards her. "Shit." Tamari cursed as she opened her fan fully revealing the third and final moon. Fueton. Luke's no Kame, wind release. Grand wind sickle. The attack was more devastating than the last one. The weapons were sent aside from their intended target and cutting wind hit right into the bun-haired Kunoichi, creating a twister in its wake. The girl was fighting the will to scream as the elemental blades were cutting into her body and ripping her clothes. Damari, seen that her opponent could probably die, shot her fan and rushed to the now falling genin and caught her before she could fall on her weapons. Holding the wounded genin in a bridal manner, she looked to the proctor. "Call the match." He nodded and announced Damari the winner as some mednins came to tend to Tenten. "That was very youthful." Lee cheered on the match. "It really was a good fight." Naruto commented with a light smile. "I should probably check on her." "After your match you can check on her," Hinata suggested with a smile. "Are you sure?" the Jinchuriki asked. "Of course I am," the LD Strara said. "But on one condition. You will love her as much as you love Jashin-sama, Hanabi-chan and myself." "Anything for my Heim." He smiled. "Good. Equals Aburami Shino vs Abum Zaku equals." Shino's turn, huh? Kiba looked at his teammate. Shino walked down silently with his hand in his pocket. Zaku was walking down with his arms in slings. Muttering on how he's going to get back at the Uchiha that messed up his arms. "Are the two contestants ready?" the Jonin asked, receiving a silent nod, a grunt in response. "Hajime. It is best that you forfeit from this match," the Aburami heir suggested with his non-emotional voice. "It would be very unwise to face an opponent with such a handicap. Shut the tuck up and let's get this shit over already." The Odo shinobi growled as his left hand twitched. "Very well then," Shino said. Zaku rushed to the living hive and tried to tackle him. The shade-wearing shinobi moved out of the way. Only for Zaku to stretch his left arm out and aim to use his Ankyuha, decapitating sound wave, in his face. The force was enough to cause a small explosion, sending the Aburami heir flying a few meters away. Many were shocked at the brutality, but so is the life of a ninja. Zaku grinned at his victory. "Well, that's that. I win." "It would seem that you have mistaken." He heard a calm voice behind him. Zaku quickly turned only to receive a swift back fist to his face. The Odonin quickly regained himself as he tried to stand back up with his usable arm. He took a look to body and saw that he blew a good portion of the face off. Only to watch as the body began to decompose into a mass horde of bugs. Zaku says in disbelief. "Ushi Bunshin, bug clone." The bug user explained. "I made the switch before you pulled your left arm out. It is good to be prepared for the worst case scenario." "Even I could have seen through that." Kin taunted at her teammate with a grin. She was confident in her ability and she did see through the switch. The life of shinobi is to deceive the enemy. Zaku was beyond angry now. "You son of a bis." He launched at the Aburami. Only to receive a knee to the gut, causing him to keel over in pain. But the pain continued as he felt the sole of the shinobi sandals into his face. He was then stepped on his chest to be held down. "Tuck," he groaned. His eyes widened at the sight of the colony marching towards him. "You have three choices," the Aburami heir stated calmly. "You either forfeit, allow my Chikachu to feed on your chakra until you're near death, or you face me in your crippled state. Or option 4. He quickly raised his right arm to fire another Zankyuha, decapitating sound wave at Shino, but suddenly felt something was wrong. What the hell? And without warning his arms were screwed up for the second time in his life. Ah. He screamed in pain as he flails his damaged arms. They were heavily bruised and gashed. The Chikachu were already feeding on him to replenish their hive's chakra source. Shino commanded his insects to return to him as the meds came to tend to the wounded shinobi. "Winner of this match, Aburami Shino," Hayate announced. Equals Isarabi vs Carry equals. "So it's my turn now." The redhead Kunoichi mumbled as she took a sucker out of her pouch, unwrapped it and popped it in her mouth. "And a Kiri Kunoichi on top of that." "Be cool, Carry," the busty teammate said in a neutral tone. "Not to mention I sense some Yauki from her too," the Niobe Jinchuriki added. "So be careful." "I'll do my best." She smiled as she leaped off the railing. Isarabi looked at the names. "It's my turn to fight." She looked at the taller teen. "You'll do fine, Isarabi-chan," the shark teeth teen said. "Thanks, Aniki. Do your best," the masked Kunoichi said as she placed an encouraging hand on her teammate's shoulder. Isarabi smiled. "Hi," she said as she walked down the stairs. Hayate looked at the two Kunoichi before him. "Are you two ready?" Isarabi nodded while Carrie moved her sucker to her other cheek and twirled the stick in her mouth. "Begin." Isarabi quickly threw a few senbons, kunai and shuriken. Carrie caught by surprise but quickly drew her tanto, moved out of the way and blocked the ones that were within her area. "You're not wasting any time," Carrie said with her topaz eyes frowning at the Kiri shinobi. "If this was a war, what would have happened?" the Kunoichi questioned. Carrie's answer was a dash with her tanto posed to slash. Isarabi quickly drew out a kunai and clashed the red-haired Kumo Kunoichi. Carrie attempted to kick the Kiri Kunoichi with her left leg, but said Kunoichi jumped back and preformed some rapid hand signs. But before she can finish her technique, the redhead kunoichi rushed and swung her blade aimed for her head. Isarabi quickly blocked it with her kunai and was sent falling as Kari hooked her leg and slammed her on the ground. The Kiri kunoichi was about to get back up, but Itanto's blade to her throat stopped her. "Give up," Kari said, twirling the sucker in her mouth. "Or else you're breathing through your neck." Isarabi smiled. "It's alright. I won't lose." Kari frowned as she raised her blade slightly and thrusts down. Only to hit the tiled floor. Her topaz eyes widen as she looked around the empty field. "Majin. Shinkai, demonic illusion. Deep sea." Isarabi's voice echoed in the tower. The blink was all needed and the scenery changed. The redhead Kumo kunoichi swiveled around. She was in water. She can feel the fluid around her body. The salty substance stinging her eyes. She looked around at the random schools of fish. She thought as she reached out and they swam away. "This is one hell of a game jutsu," she thought. "It feels too damn real." She then made hand signs to release it. But she felt something swam past behind her. Kari turned only to see nothing but the vast deep blue underwater sea. "Hey there, pup." An aquatic female voice greeted behind the kunoichi. Kari's eyes widened as she turned. Only for her topaz eyes to see two large rows of serrated teeth biting down on her body. The Kumo kunoichi yelled as she dropped her tanto and her sucker fell out of her mouth to wrap her arms around her stomach as if trying to hold herself together. Isarabi appeared behind the mentally distraught kunoichi and knocked her out before the game jutsu could devour her mind. "I suggest that you can do something about this," she said to the proctor, who nodded. "Winner, Isarabi," Hade announced. "That has to be one hell of a game jutsu," Naruto commented. He noted that her eyes were glass black before reveering back to her brown eyes. "Isanate excels in game jutsu, Sachi," Kushina said to her son as she pets a small kid in their mindscape. "So I'd suggest being careful if you ever face her." "Alright, Ka-san." The Jinchuriki smiled. No matter how old, he'll still be Kushina's kid. "Hey, pup. That boy with the red-tinted blonde hair is looking at you," the female voice noted. "And I have to say, he is quite the looker. Wouldn't mind sinking my teeth into his flesh." She giggled. "If you know what I mean." "Iso-san." She flushed as she glanced at Naruto. Naruto, seeing this, waved at the Sanbi container as she made her way back to her teammates. Tohika Maivs Inyazuka Kiba equals. Yahoo! Kiba cheered as he watches his name displayed on the board. "Our turn to shine, Akamaru." His Ninken barked in agreement. "Good luck, Kiba," Shino said with a stoic expression. "Thanks, Shino." Kiba grinned at his friend. "Just don't get over your head." Hinata giggled. Yeah, Hinata." Kiba mumbled at his other teammate as he jumped off the railing. Mai sighed as she looked at her name on the board. "My turn already?" "Don't worry," Tate said as he places his arm around the orange-haired Tsume kunoichi's shoulder. "You got this." Mai simply shrugged his arm off and walked down the stairs. "Wish me luck, Mikoto." She waved at her black-haired teammate. "Good luck, Mai." She smiled then frowned at Tate. "She hasn't forgiven you." He ignored his growl. "And neither have I." Mai walked down the stairs and stood at the ground seeing a waiting Kiba. The Inyazuka heir grinned at the challenger. "I hope we have a good match. Just don't cry if you lose." Mai moved a lock of her orange hair over her ear. "Sorry, but I don't intend to lose." That was Natsuki's. The black-haired Tsume kunoichi thought. "Are both combatants ready?" Hade asked, receiving a nod from both. "Hajime." Kiba instantly gathered chakra. The amount was thick enough you could see the blue aura around him. Mai tensed slightly at the pulse. "Iju Ninpu. Shikaku no Jutsu, beast mimicry. Four-leg jutsu." He muttered as he went on all fours, his canines growing longer and his nails growing to claws. The genin's face became more feral and his eyes gave a predatory look at the orange-haired genin. Kiba moved instantly with his enhanced speed. He drove his elbow into Tsume kunoichi's stomach and she was sent a good few feet away from him. She stumbled on the ground and laid there unmoving. Kiba sighed as he stood up. "I guess that was it." He then looked to the proctor. "Call the match." "I think he went a bit too far," a young woman about her 20s commented. She wore a red knee-length dress with wide black and white bandages crisscrossed over it, the left sleeve shone. He had wild but tamed black hair that waved down to her lower back and two collar-length bangs framing her face. Her eyes are red with a dark purple ring in it and light dark purple eyeshadow over them. She wears a jonin jacket and Konoha hit I-8 over her forehead along with shinobi sandals on her feet. But before Hate was able to utter a syllable, a voice side interrupted him. "So that was it?" Mai sighed as she stood up and pats her stomach. "That was harder than I thought." Jashin grinned as she watches the match. She was sitting on pale gray throne-like chair made of bones from several demons. She was wearing her robe and in her hand was a cup thick rich red wine, the color and texture seemingly close to blood. Some of the jonin shivered at the display. And not in a good way. This will be a good match. She looked behind her. What do you say, my dear? Naruto was seated on the throne with the fallen goddess on his lap. His hand around her waist and other on the armrest. He smiled at the goddess. I think it will be good. You're tougher than I thought. The Inuzuka heir grinned. Good. It'll take a lot more than that little pat in the stomach, she said. So you think you can do better? He taunted. Not think. She said as she moved at a blinding speed that only few can follow. I can. She said as she was behind Kiba, leg raised and struck his back. The winced at the sound of the blow and the angle the shinobi's back bent. Kiba was sent flying into the wall, causing some of the debris to fall on him. The downed genin groaned. Holy shit, that was fast. Ino said. Kiba groaned as he rose from the small debris that he was patting off. Okay, I admit. That caught me off guard. He admits. But before he can get his bearings back he was suddenly knocked back into the wall. By a kicked Akamaru. Another groan accompanied by a whimper. Mai huffs her hair from her eyes. That's it. She taunted. I expected more from the Inuzuka clan. She grinned. Maybe you really are just a dog. Kiba bursts from the debris with Akamaru shaking some of the small pebbles from his fur. Both were spotting a few bruises. Alright, time to get serious. Kiba grinned as he reached into his pouch and took out 2 black pills. I think it's time we stopped wasting our time on this Kunoichi. Don't you think so, Akamaru? Akamaru barked in agreement. Good. He flicked one of the pills at his ninkin and popped the other one in his mouth. Both the Inuzuka and his partner began to growl. The air becoming more feral and humanly beastly as Akamaru's fur become red and his flopped ears a darker tone. So that's why he's called Akamaru. Mai thought out loud. Let's go Akamaru. Kiba growled. He pat Akamaru's head and does a half-sheep sign. Giju Ninpu. Jaijin Bunshin, beast mimicry. Man-beast clone. Akamaru barked as he burst into a plume of smoke and there stood a second feral Kiba snarling at the orange-haired Kunoichi. She stood guard ready for anything. The 2 Kibas rushed at the Tsun Kunoichi, both with their arms posed to claw the genin. Mai ducked and weaved beneath the attempted slashes. She jumped back just as one of the Kibas came down with an axe kick, shattering the tile where she stood. Mai retaliated by grabbing the clawed hand and knees the opponent in the gut. She moved away from the second Kiba only to get nicked on her left shoulder. She mentally flinched, punched the attacking Kiba in the face, sending him to the wall. The first Kiba intercepted and caught him. The second Kiba looked at the first with a questioning gaze. The first nodded and they both ran at the Tsun Kunoichi, crossing each other's path as they neared her. Let's go, Akamaru. Kiba yelled as Akamaru growled. Kitsuga, fang over fangs. Both Kiba and Akamaru leaped and began to turn in such a speed they appeared to like 2 drills that can tear through anything. Mai leaped away just as the duo passed by. Mai sucked her teeth as she felt a claw marked her leg as she leaped up. As Mai landed she avoided a drill but was caught by the second one in her arm and side, tearing the cloth in the process. The Kiba that hit her stopped and drifted on the ground, took out 2 smoke bombs at the orange-haired Kunoichi. Mai cursed as she enveloped in the smoke. She heard the sound of the attack and leaped out of the smoke. Only to be knocked back in by Kiba yelling Tsuga, tunneling fang. Mai was knocked in the air with the force of the blow and suddenly felt a pain in her back by a second Kiba doing it Tsuga, tunneling fang. The attack was digging in her skin and she smashed into the ground. The smoke cleared out and a beaten Mai was laying on the ground motionless with a transformed Akamaru standing over her. Good work Akamaru. Kiba cheered. But was suddenly punched in the stomach. Akamaru? He questioned as he was suddenly punched in the gut a second time, followed by a knee to the chin. That had to hurt, right? Akamaru asked in a female voice. What the hell? Kiba pondered as he stood and whipped his chin. Akamaru then was surrounded by a poof of smoke and Mai was standing in his place. The Tsun Kunoichi was panting. Her stomach bruised and her back was wounded, along with her robed shirt which was completely ruined, leaving her standing in her D-cup in wrappings and tattered pants. Shit, I wasted too many chakra in those moves. Kiba thought. I think we should end this. Mai said as she took a calming breath. Ha! Like you got enough to beat me? Kiba taunted. You're low on chakra. Mai grinned as she walked away. I win. She snapped her finger. Before Kiba could call her out he was suddenly blown back by a combustion blast in his stomach. The other genins were shocked at the explosion and Hate raised his hand. Winner. Tohika Mai. That was a good fight. Kiba groaned. Before he passed out he asked the other mednins to check on Akamaru. Mai was having difficulty reaching the steps. She lost her footing and was about to fall but was caught. You okay? Naruto asked as he held up by her stomach and draping his haori over her shoulders covering her wrappings. I'm fine, thank you. Mai answered as she holds the Haori around her, relishing in its warmth. I'll help you up. He offered as he guided her up the stairs. The duo reached up and Makoto walked to them. I'll take it from here. She said as she looked at the red-tinted blonde. Okay. The QBR smiled at the gold-eyed Kunoichi. Thanks again. Mai smiled as she was about to remove the Haori. Hold on to it. He said. You actually look good with it. He said ignoring the glare from the Tsume shinobi. Equals Managi Makoto vs Haruno Sakura equals. Sakura's eyes widened. I'm next. She whispered. She nearly jumped out of her skin when she felt a hand on her shoulder. Relax, Sakura. Naruto said encouragingly. You'll be okay. Sakura was not surprised at this. Her teammate was always calm in certain situations. Thanks, Naruto-kun. She walked away before seeing a surprised expression and a small blush on the Jinchuriki's face. Well, that was a good one. Kushina giggled. Looks like she's starting to like you. Naruto nodded mentally. Makoto looked at her opponent with a bored look on her face. I'll end this quickly. She said as she grabbed her robed weapon and jumps down the rail. Sakura was standing by the Jonin as the Tsume Kunoichi reaches in front of her. Her robed weapon in her arms. Are both fighters ready? He asked, getting a nod from the Haruno Kunoichi and silent answer from the gold-eyed female. Hajime. Sakura instantly jumped back, setting a defensive stance. Why are you so tensed? Makoto asked in a bored tone as she rests her weapon over her shoulder. We only just started. This one is dangerous. Sakura thought. To think that I'll be fighting a weakling. Makoto commented. I'm stronger than you think. Sakura frowned. We'll see about that. Makoto muttered as she held her weapon in both her arms. She set the tip back and allowed it to hit the ground. A small crater with crack at the point of impact. Sakura was surprised that such a young girl could hold a weapon with that weight. Without warning, Makoto rushed forward and swung her weapon down at Pinket Kunoichi. Sakura avoided the weapon. Some of the debris passing and cutting her. Seeing her opponent distracted, she used her momentum and swung to deliver a double kick to the Konoha Kunoichi's gut, sending he rolling on the ground a few meters away. Shit, she kicks hard. Sakura muttered as she clutched her stomach. I should finish this. Makoto said as she removed the wrapping of her clothed weapon. Everyone saw as the weapon was removed. What they saw astonished them. The blade was obsidian black with blood-red tints. The blade was at least 6 feet long and the handle a feet long. The blade curved at the end, giving it a wide tip point. But their attention was suddenly directed to sound of a massive quake. They looked in shock at the cloth that was wrapped around the claymore. There was a sizable crater around the cloth. Just how strong is she? Karen asked as she stared in awe. She's as strong as Ta Yuya in her second state. Kin thought. Makoto then swung her blade across the ground, making a circle, then slamming the blade into the ground about 4 feet deep. Almost instantly, black spikes rise at the Pinket in an uprising manner. The Pinket was avoiding the spikes, getting a few nicks here and there. One spike pierced through her shin and Makoto was instantly behind her, claymore posed at her neck and several spiked inches away from her vitals. The Pinket had enough room to just a breath. Give up. The sword wielder said in a cold tone. Her gold eyes had a slight glow, making her more intimidating. The Haruno Kunoichi only nodded and raised her hand. I forfeit this match. She said. The spikes recede into the ground and Makoto removed the tip and held it over her shoulder with one arm. She went and grabbed her cloth and wrapped her blade in it. If you take being a Kunoichi seriously, maybe there is hope for you. She said as she makes her way to the second floor. Sakura nodded and made her way to the blonde teammate. You did okay, Sakura. Naruto commented. The Pinket shook her head. I didn't put a scratch on her. She looked down shamefully. I really am insult to Kunoichis. Inside as she stepped to the Pinket. Well, at least you admitted that you were wasting your time. Then she smiled. If you want, I can give you some pointers. You would? She asked, surprised. Yeah. The black-haired genin scratched the back of her head and leaned to the Pinket's ear. To be honest, you blonde friend, and Naruto-kun asked me too. She whispered. You should really think about the guy you're after. He might be a better choice. Although you might have to share him. She smiled at the Pinket lightly blushed cheeks. Oh, speak of the devil. She grinned as she looked at board. Equals Uzumaki Naruto vs Uchiha Tate equals. Looks like Naruto-kun's up. Hinata said while she crossed her arms over her bust. This should be easy. The goddess said as she stood off her groom. Good luck, Naruto. Sakura said to her teammate. Naruto smiled. No problem, Sakura-chan. He said as he made his way to the ground. He heard when Kin was talking to the Pinket teammate. I'll bring this up to the girls. He thought. I do admit to having a crush on her. My turn. Tate grinned as he leaped down the railing. He wanted to go the orange-haired Kunoichi for her to wish her luck, but a few lion summons stopped his advance. I'll just take the stress on the dope. He mentally grinned. Tate watched as the two contestants stand before him. Are you two ready? Naruto nodded and Tate grinned. Hajime. Before Tate had time to say anything, Naruto's shadow began to wave and bubble. The Tsume shinobi raised his guard for anything. Well, almost anything. This reavor, roughly the size of a 3-year-old child. In fact, looked like a child. The claws were black with silver tips and the feet looked like shoes. It was dressed in black clothing. The sleeves were a quart to its arms and the dress reached down to its shins. Its face wore an aloof expression with the insignia of Jashin on its forehead. In its arms seems to be a box with orange spirals on it. Lunchtime, Naru-sama. Its childlike distorted voice caused some of the room occupants to shiver. A child should never talk with that kind of voice. Not even as a joke. Until they caught what the young reavor said. Wait, lunch, Chaoji yelled as she looked at the Pakage, already drooling at what its contents may be. Tate frowned at the Jinchuriki. This isn't time for lunch. He yelled. Naruto opened the box ignoring the shinobi. What do you have to today, he muttered. His eyes widened with grin. Raymond. He yelled as he hefted the bowl of hot noodles and brew and looked at the young reavor. Would you like to eat with me? If that is alright. I humbly accept the invitation. The childlike servant replied. Itadakimasu. Itadakimasu. They said in unison. By now Tate was getting beyond pissed. How dare the dope ignore him? In his rage he rushed at the eating pair. As reached closer he swung his leg aimed for the genin's head. Only to be stopped by chopsticks. Naruto was still chewing the few noodles. You now, swallows, it's not nice to interrupt someone's lunchtime. Tate was also in shock as he jumped. He failed to realize the small reavor aloof expression turned to a snarl showing her small but razor-sharp teeth. How dare you interrupt Naru-sama's lunchtime? She growled, leaking potent kai at the Tsume shinobi. Tate tried to shrug off the kai but find it was pretty hard. But before the small reavor can dispose of the fool, her master's hand gently landed on her shoulder. I'm done. He smiled, ignoring the fact that he just saved his opponent's life from a bloody, gory and unpleasant death. He kneeled to the smaller. Now go to Ja-chan. He said, smiling. The kai suddenly vanished and the aloof expression returned. Okay, Naru-sama. Tate watched as the small childlike demon sink into the Jinchuriki's shadow and appear in front of the demon goddess kneeling on knee. Good day, Jashin-sama. Hello, Jana. The bloody goddess addressed the younger. Come, join me since you're out. She advised. The small reavor would be fooled to deny the invitation. She went and stood at left of the throne-like chair. Tate sweats after hearing the name of the gray-haired woman. Jashin, he yelled mentally. He thoughts away. No way. He thought. Well, I'm ready. Naruto patted his pants as he looked at the Tsume shinobi. Tate allowed an arrogant smirk on his face. So finally ready to get your face kicked? That's a lot coming from a shinobi nearly pissing his pants from such a small dosage of kai. The demon container grinned. Let's see who's gonna pee their pants after I'm done with you. He threatened. The whiskered teen raised an eyebrow. Sounds gay. I'm gonna really pass on that. He said. Mai snorted after hearing that. Tate glared at the Konohinin after hearing that. A word of advice. He said in a calm tone. And that would be? He asked, not interested. Mai. Makoto growled at his teammate as Mai scowled. Naruto looked at them, seeing that they didn't like the idea either. He looked at the orange-haired Kunoichi as if looking for something. What are you doing? The Tsume shinobi gritted. He was getting tired of being ignored. Just checking if Mai-san has property of douchebag written on her. He replied. I've had enough. He gritted as he formed the snake hand sign. Kimono, no shoji. Hibi, beast possession. Serpent. He hissed as his arms and legs became thinner and longer but seemed stronger. His face became more angular and straighter while his eyes turned slit. This will end in a few hits alone. He hissed. The Jinchuriki simply raised an eyebrow. Hibi ken. He stated as he slipped into a stance. Let's begin, Tobeo. He rushed at the Tsume genin. Tate was caught off guard, being set into the defensive, blocking his left leg. He noted that the blow wasn't so hard as he thought. You're not so, though his sentence was abruptly cut short by a fist in his stomach. Tate coughed a blob of saliva and doubling over from the force of the blow. Never underestimate your opponent. The Jinchuriki lectured. That's my kit. Kick his ass, Taban. The Kyuubi yelled in her seal. She was sitting on a sofa with a bowl of ramen-flavored popcorn on her lap. Behind her was a large group foxes with different signs varying from Fight Naruto. To show that foxes are the best. Tate was furious. He was being handled by someone supposedly weaker than him. The Tsume shinobi launched at the Jinchuriki his hands with faint purple glow that nearly went unnoticed by his opponent. Tate struck like viper with hands out like a blade ready to stab. The blonde Uzumaki nimbly dodged but felt a small stinging feeling on his left cheek. The feeling made him jump back to a safe distance, but Tate was hot on his heels as he swings for a high kick to his head, with his feet glowing a faint purple glow. The Jinchuriki blocked the leg with his forearm and studied the offensive limb. He noted the purple glow and realization dawned on him. Poison? He claimed as he pushed the Tsume shinobi leg and swung with a sweeping kick. Tate leaped back avoiding the sweep and landed at least a few feet away, with an arrogant smirk on his face. That's right. He hissed. The poison is very lethal. It can bring large animals to a coma or even death. The bad that's not gonna work on me. He thought. Tate studied his opponent. Strange he doesn't look a bit infected. The shinobi thought. His heart rate's the same. He's not even panting due to the poison should affect his lungs by now. You're probably wondering, why isn't the poison working? The Jinchuriki read his expression. It's simple really. He remained silent for a while. He grinned showing his small canines. Poison can't do shit to me. Even Manda-sen's poison could just give a stomachache for about a few minutes, and even then it's not enough to hold me back. Though the last part. No one has such high resistance to my poison. The Tsumenin gritted. It's mixed with a multitude of venom from different poison species in the elemental nation. Well, I'm standing right here. And as you and many other can see, I'm completely fine. Although I am feeling hungry again. His stomach growled in agreement. Maybe some frog legs would do good. He looked at the shinobi. They probably taste like chicken. Tate was even more pissed. I'm finishing you right now. He shouted as he concentrated all the poison in his hand. This will finish you. He launched at the Konoha genin with the intent to kill. Tate, seeing that the Tsume shinobi lost his cool, was going in for the kill, was about to intervene, but Naruto moved before the proctor can do anything. In a flash of a blade, the Jinchuriki was standing behind the Tsumenin with sword drawn. He twirled it and slowly sheaths the sword. Aye. Hanakiri, quick draw. Feather cut. The click initiated Tate's body suddenly to burst from the amount of cuts distributed on him by the red-tinted blonde. The Tsume shinobi fell on the ground and reverted to his human state. I lost. He questioned. How? Because you're weak. Naruto answered bluntly. Tate glared at him as Medic Nin carried him to the medroom. Naruto sighed as he walked back up the stairs and saw the orange-haired looking at him. Thank you. She said with a bow. The Jinchuriki smiled. The least I can do. He said as he passed by her Kagetsuchi no Maiko. Mai's purple eyes widened as she looked at the retreading back of the shinobi. Naruto-kun. She thought absent-mindedly. Equals Hyuga Niji vs Samui equals. Niji took a deep breath as she readied herself and walked down the stairs. She looked at her cousin and she received an encouraging smile. Niji smiled back at her cousin. Samui looked at her name on the board. The busty blonde sighed. Not cool. She lamented as she walked down the stairs. She of course noted the majority of the male half was staring at her friests as they subtly bounced in her movement. Blue eyes caught her attention as she looked at the red-tinted shinobi. She instantly noted that he was looking at her in whole and not her chest. Maybe not all men are like that. She sported a small smile on her pale lips. Niji noted the small action and narrowed her pale eyes. It would seem that I have to face you for more to represent the Hyuga house. She said as she slips into her Jaiken, gentle fist, stance. Samui drew out her tanto and set her guard. The Raikage advised to keep distance when you face a Hyuga in a battle. Rather it's life, death or just sparing. Are the two Kunoichis ready? He asked. They both nodded, not keeping an eye off the other. Hajime. The female Hyuga rushed and closed the distance in matter of seconds. Samui, thankful for her training, was able to avoid a palm strike to her left shoulder. The blonde Kunoichi drew her tanto in a reverse grip and swung to the Hyuga's left arm. Niji was lucky enough to catch the motion and avoided the swing by bending backwards, showing her flexibility, and kicked the Kumo Kunoichi on her thigh. Samui buckled under her weight and fell forward. Niji jumped back and smirked at her. It seems those friests will white you down more in the future. She taunted. Samui stood up and frowned at the Hyuga. Well, excuse for being naturally well endowed. She remarked in a slight sarcastic tone. And at least you don't have to suffer from occasional back pains either. She thought. She stood up. She then glanced at the Kyubi Jinchuriki. But it seems that someone has caught my interest. She glanced at Konoha's Jinchuriki. Niji, seeing this, starting to lose her cool. Sometime a Hyuga can be very possessive and jealous of a person that strikes their fancy. And seeing that Akumo Kunoichi is the one that is aiming Naruto like that pissed her off. She took a deep breath. Naruto-sama would be very disappointed if I lose my cool. She thought. She schooled her features and went through several hand signs. Byakugan. She thought as she activated her clan Dijutsu. The busty Kumo Kunoichi's face was slightly paler, now seeing her opponent activated her Kake Genkai. Only one word can describe her feeling now. Shit. Let us begin for real this time. Niji stated as she slipped into her family stance once again. I'll disable her arms and legs and the match will be in my favor. She thought as she launched at the Kumogenin and aimed for her shoulders. Samui moved out of the way to avoid the blow. Gachaniji thought as she redirected her left hand and nailed Samui on her left thigh. The Kumogenin failed, her muscle clamped and she lost her balance once again. She jumped away using her right leg, but Niji cued her by her ankle. The short blonde-haired Kunoichi flickened as she felt her ankle popped out of place. As if having a busted shoulder wasn't enough at the moment. As she landed a few feet away. She hissed as she placed pressure on her damaged foot. You're finished. Give up. Niji stated as she looked at the Kunoichi with calculative eyes. Then come and finish this match. I'm not going down without a fight. She challenged. Niji suddenly rushed the genin and palmed her in the stomach. She had made sure to put enough force to knock out the busty blonde. Kinda hard to hit the stomach with her fists in the way, but I managed. She thought as she let her guard down and deactivated her bloodline trait. Samui saw the opening and suddenly wrapped around the Konoha genin. You now. She panted. Raiden. Ninja no Haration, lightning release. Human lightning rod. Niji eyes widened at the sudden surge of electricity going through her body. Samui only kept the attack for a few seconds until she released it. Both competitors fell back only to be caught by Kyuubi and Niobe Jinchuriki. Is she alright? Samui asked. Naruto nodded and smiled at the Kumo Kunoichi. She's fine. Winner of this match, Samui. Hayato declared. Naruto and Yujito nodded to each other and leaped up the balcony with their fellow villager. Oh, he is perfect. Madatabi purred to her host. If you don't hurry, that melon jug teammate of yours will get him. She snickered. Madatabi. The Burning Cat's host mentally shouted at her tenant with red face of embarrassment. Naruto placed Niji next to her teammate and smiled. Rest well. He thought as he made his way to pink-haired teammate. Equals Rock Lee vs Abaku no Gara equals. Without a thought, Gara used a Sunashunshin, sand body flicker, to get to the ground floor, awaiting her opponent. Lai tu Uorn. Lee's voice was echoed throughout the tower. And possibly the forest. Unknown location. A man wearing Swirl's orange mask looked up from his book. What was that? He thought. Hanahagakure. Alright, Lee. Guy yelled at his student. It's time to show them the power of youth. Yes, Guy-sensei. Lee saluted. Now keep your eye on your opponent, make sure that she's not predicting your moves. Yes, Guy-sensei. Lee nodded as he drew a writing pad out of nowhere and began jotting down some notes. Do you really need that? Naruto asked as he walked to the two. I mean, as not he'll be able to check them while he's fighting. He wondered. Some very good advice, Naruto-kun. Lee agreed as he jots down some more notes, which was confiscated from the now okay female Hyuga member. I swear you have too much energy. She sighed. Now go on. Lee nodded and landed with light thud in the ground and proceeded to go in his Goken stance. Gara simply stood there with arms crossed over her chest. Are the two combatants ready? He asked. Gara simply stared and Lee suddenly caught something in his hand. You're very impatient. He commented respectfully as he crushed a cork of sand. The Shodai Meichibi Jinchuriki stood there with her gourd open and sand flowing out of it. Let us begin. She said in a monotonous voice. Hajime. Heiei cried as he leaped back knowing this will a big match. Lee rushed at the Suna genin with low chunin speed and lashed out. Konoha Senpyu, Leaf Whirlwind. He swung his left for a devastating kick. Gara simply glanced at the incoming limb and a wall sand blocked the kick with thud. The Suna Kunoichi retaliated by sending tendrils of sands at the green-clad genin, but he avoids them to the best of his speed. Lee leaped back from a small wave of sand and lands on one of the statues. I can't get through her defense. He thought with a light frown. Lee. Guy called out to his student. Once Jonin clone gave his sensei his attention, he grinned and gave him a good guy pose. You can take him off. Lee's eye widened, more I guess. But Guy sensei. He worried. You only said to take them off when those most important to me are in great danger. He leaped out of the way just to avoid a sand cannon from the irate redhead. Lee slid on the ground avoiding more and more sand attacks. This is an exception. The Jonin sensei replied. Lee leaped back and took the orange leg warmers of, revealing weight seals on them. Just then Kakashi came back. What did I miss? She asked. The San Daime Jinchuriki simply pointed at the green-clad genin. I can finally move more freely. Lee praised as he dropped the weights. What good would those do? Kankuro thought smugly. No matter how much weight he had that won't. Crash. I know Baka. The daughter of the White Fang thought with a sigh. What the hell was that? Tamari though as she surveyed the dust explosions. That has to be close to a ton. She was now worried for her sister. Gara stared at the dust smoke intently. A green blur flew out of the smoke and she raised her sand to block whatever blow her opponent would throw, only for that sand guard to burst by force alone. What? Both the Jinchuriki and her host thought while the female redhead kept a stoic expression. Tenkuro was shocked. He broke through Gaara's defense. He looked at the scene before as his younger sister was trying to trap the green blur that is actually hitting through the defense and nearly striking her. Gaara was trying to keep an eye on green-clad Genin, only to barely miss the blocks and dodges. She heard a sound behind her. She quickly maneuvered the sand to trap her prey, only to get nothing. Right here. Lee yelled as was doing a rapid frontal somersault and swung his leg down on the Suna Kunoichi's forehead just as she turned to the sound. She actually got hit. Temari yelled. Gaara jumped just as a second leg swung to her temple. She landed performing hand seals. Ninpo. Tsunayari, ninja art. Sand spears. She announced as her sand gathered and hardened to jagged-tipped spears. Said spears were sent to skewer the leaf Genin, but he used his amazing speed to dodge all of them. Can't get a hit on him. She thought. Don't blink. Lee thought as he used his speed to get past Gaara's defense and was below her. The Ichibi host's eyes were wide open as she felt the green-clad shinobi's feet connected to her chin with a hard kick that sent her up a few inches of the ground. I'm not done yet. He yelled as he sends a second kick to her midsection and continues with the assault, knocking her higher into the air. Gaara was trying to get the sand to reach her. But then she saw when Lee flinched due to straining his muscles. That was the opening she needed. Lee quickly went ahead with his assault without losing momentum. When they reached high enough he quickly moved and bound her with medical tapes. This is it. He announced as he pulled her back making them fall head first while rotating rapidly in a clockwise direction. Amit Renj, primary lotus. He cried as Gaara and himself crashed head first into the tiled ground, causing a pillar of dust and debris to fly up. The spectators watch as Lee jumped out of the dust cloud panting and dusting some dirt of his arms. That was close, he panted. Good work Lee. Guy cheered. Naruto narrowed his eyes. They're still conscious. Kushina said. Sand suddenly burst from below the green-clad Genin. Rock Lee was caught off guard so he was well caught by the sand. Gaara was below the sand prison with her left hand raised in grabbing manner. Her eyes were now a gold star shaped with small golden rings on each corner and her sclera is black. She had a semi-psycho grin showing her small but sharp fangs. Shit, Shukaku-san took over. Temari thought now feeling sorry for the leaf Genin. Well. Look what was caught in my sand trap. She said with a giddy tone. Now what should I do? She pondered. I can break his arms and legs, thus ruining his shinobi career. Lee's eyes widen at that. Have my sand dig into his skin and destroy an organ one at a time while keeping his heart and brain active. Guy was praying that she wouldn't do that. The demoness then snapped her finger causing Lee to flinch as the pressure applied albeit slightly. I announced that youth is a sham. She grinned. That was the last straw. Both Lee and Guy remained silent after that. Their eyes being covered by the bangs of their bowl-cut hair. Shukaku raised an amused eyebrow at the sudden stillness. Dai-sensei. He whispered. Dude Lee. Guy raised his head with a serious look on his face. Let the lotus bloom a second time. Kakashi's visible eye widened. You didn't? She asked. I did. The green beast replied. Sakura looked between the two jonin. What's wrong, Kakashi-sensei? The 8 celestial gates. The daughter of the Shiroi Kiba said. What's that? Ino asked as she was eavesdropping on the group. While Guy was explaining the difference of the 8 gates Gaara Shukaku was listening in. Oh? So he has a trump card, huh? She chuckled as she threw the Genin against the wall with a sickening crash. Let's see what you got. So how many gates can he open? Naruto asked. 6. Guy stated proudly. 6 out of the 8 gates Kakashi said in mild surprise. That's amazing. She admitted. Lee stood there panting as he spread his legs shoulder width and crossed his arms over his head. The Amit Renj, primary lotus, is what opens the first gate. Guy lectured. The crowd watched as the air around Lee began to waver and wisps of chakra come of him in an flowing aura. Ayumo, Kai, gate of healing, release. The chakra began to swirl around the Genin and his wounds began to heal. Seiman, Kai, gate of life, release. Shoman, Kai, gate of pain. Release. Toman. Kai, gate of limit. Release. Lee's skin turned red and steam was emitting from his body. His body was pulsing like a heart with his veins visible to the naked eyes. Kamen Kai, gate of view. Release. He yelled as he chakra bursts from his body, showing his wide eyes and his hair flowing from the energy. Gaara Shukaku stared at the Genin before them with an unreadable expression. But that expression suddenly vanished as she felt an undeniable blow to her stomach and was sent crashing into the wall of the tower. Many watch in shock at the scene as Lee stood there in the same place Gaara once stood. Sand bursts out from the debris and tried to capture the genin, only to catch air instead. Gaara was suddenly launched into the air by a jaw-breaking punch to the chin. Gaara was airborne again, only to kicked in the ribs to side of the building. Once again sailing through the air, she assumed that she would crash once again. She's still thankful for Shukaku's assistance and the Suna no Yoroi sand armor she had on. But she didn't crash into the wall this time. She was instead kicked and punched through the entire area, with Lee using the walls, floor and the ceiling as his leverage to hit and crush his opponent. This is bad, Gaara thought as she had taken control back to her body. If this continued, she allowed the thought to hang. She suddenly saw a red-faced wide-eyed Lee in front of her. Before she could do anything, she was palmed hard into her chest and was sent crashing to the ground. What? She noted the med tape tied to her belt and held in Lee's left hand. When did he? Her thoughts were abruptly stopped when she felt a sudden tug on the tape and was reeled back up to the airborne genin, who had his right arm and leg ready to strike. Your renge, reverse lotus. He cried as he slammed his palm and foot onto the Ichibi Jinchuriki and was sent crashing into the ground, causing a natural explosion with tiles and chunk of debris flying from the impact. Gaara. Tamari yelled to her younger sister. This is not good. Kushina frowned. After that, Lee crashed on the ground panting. His bruised body breathing heavily. What's wrong with him? Sakura asked. His body is well beyond the limit. Kakashi summarized as she watched the guy clone stood up shakily. That's one hell of a will. It's not over yet. Jashin says as she shifted on her seat, earning a grunt from said seat. Easy there, big boy. The goddess grinned at her fiancé. I did. Dotted guy sensei. Lee panted. Good work, Lee. Konoha's green beast said proudly. Winner of this match. Hey, began but. Suna tsunami. Gaara yelled as a tidal wave of sand rises to a good height of 13 feet. The shinobi stare in shock that the Suna genin was still active after such a powerful attack beaten into her. Lee was in even more shock due to his trump card not being effective against Shukaku's hostess. The sand crashes into him and slams him into the wall with enough force to crack his spine. He yelled in pain as he starts levitating into the air with sand-like glob holding him in place. Tsubaku Kayu, dessert coffin. A maniacal voice echoed in the area. The genin and Jonin watch as the smoke clear and Gaara stood there panting and huffing. She had her right hand out in a claw-like manner and her left hand in half-tiger seal. She was gonna continue until she noticed that Lee was knocked out. TSK. She spat on the side and allowed the boy and sand to fall to the ground. Guy catching his young pupil before he hit the ground. You've done good, Lee. Guy said with a small smile. Winner Sabaku no Gaara. Hade announced. Gaara simply crossed her arms and went back to her siblings. Equals Tsuchi-kin vs Nizo FO, Iwa equals. Will the next two shinobis come down? Hade said as he looked around. Inside as she saw her name on the board. It's my turn, huh? She said. Ino placed an encouraging hand on the Blacket's shoulder. You'll do fine. She reassured with a smile. You'll be fine, Kin-chan. Naruto encouraged the Oto Kunoichi. Thanks, Naruto-kun. She smiled. Kun. Where did that come from? She leaped onto the floor. Don't go easy on her. A female Iwa Kunoichi ordered the male. She has short black with orange streaks hair with one bang reaching past her left cheek and the other passing her neck. Pink non-pupil eyes and a small button nose. She wears the regular Iwa shinobi attire. A dark red short-sleeved shirt with brown jacket over it. You can see the mesh shirt out the linings of the sleeves. Dark brown shinobi pants and kunai holsters on each thighs and brown shinobi sandals. Her Iwa hit I-8 worn proudly on her forehead. I got this. The shinobi answered with a gruff voice. Like some Iwa shinobi, he has a buffed and muscular body. He wears an orange bandana over his head with the Iwa hit I-8 around his neck. His skin is lightly tanned and his eyes coal black. He wears a brown shirt with black anbu pants and steel-tipped boots. He jumped down and landed with a heavy thud on the ground, shaking the area slightly. Hey, don't break my tower. Anko threatened. The Iwa shinobi simply glared at the snake mistress. Are the two fighters ready? Hade asked, saving the Iwa shinobi with an appointment with Manda. In nodded as Foe simply crossed his buffed arms across his large chest and nodded. Hajim. Bro quickly went through some hand signs. Doten. Baseki, Earth Release. Tombstone. Foe slammed on of his hands in the ground while holding the half-ram seal. Feeling the vibration under her feet, Kin leaped back just as a four-corner spike rises and closes just where she stood. Too bad I didn't get to go against a Konohinin. Ro grumbled. But you'll have to do. He said as he preforms another set of hand seals. Doten. Doryuden no Jutsu, Earth Release. Earth Dragon Bullet Jutsu. He cried as a dragon's head of earth bursts out of the ground and fires blobs of heavy mud at the Oto genin. Kin dodged the blobs and tossed a few senbons at him. The Iwa Genin simply avoided them and knocked few of them with a quick swipe of his kunai. "Is that it?" he boasted. "No wonder Odo is weak. You guys are throwing a bunch of senbons instead using kunais." He laughed. "Oh, these are more than just some senbons." She smiled as she tossed a dozen more. Bo simply dodged and knocked few more away from him, one reaching close to his left feet. Kin grinned at that and pulled her right arm back. Fo questioned the action with a raised eyebrow. He then felt a strange tingling in his ear. "What the hell?" He muttered as he shook his head lightly, only to see 3 kin standing in front of him. "What's wrong?" Her voice echoed. "A few seconds ago you were on a high horse." "Bane jutsu? But how?" The Iwa Genin thought frantically. "I gotta this finish fast." Kin thought as she placed her hand on the seal on her left arm. It was shaped like a fox's head with 6 circles around it. "I gotta thank Naru-kun for this." She thought as the sealed weapon appeared from a poof of smoke. "Ozu's melody arm." Without a second thought, Kin dashed to her dazed opponent and punched him in his chest. The vibration from the melody caused the Iwa shinobi's body to shake. First note. Heartbreaker. Saisho no Onpu H Taburi. Kin grinned as she flicked the first hole on the gauntlet. The result was instant. The shockwave from the attack sent Fo to wall and he crashed into it. His large body slumped with blood from the corner of his lips and a fist indent in his chest. Kin raised an eyebrow. "Must have put more chakra in it than I thought," she muttered. "Winner, Tsuchi Kin," Hayate announced. Equals Nara Shikamaru vs Ayuno Iwa equals. Hayate turned from the board and looked up. "Will the 2 other combatants come down?" Shikamaru sighed. "Troublesome," he muttered. "I should probably forfeit." As if reading her boyfriend's mind, Chaoji looked to him. "Forfeit and no cuddle time for a week," she threatened, knowing that's his first favorite thing to do. The Nara heir's eyes widened. "You're kidding." He called her bluff and was shoved off the ledge by a smiling Ino saying nope. Shikamaru crashed on the ground and groaned. Troublesome girlfriend and childhood friend. He stood up and lazily studied his opponent. Like the Odo Genin's fight, he's also against an Iwa shinobi, but why do I always fight the women? He groaned. That earned a tick mark on said Kunoichi's head. She wears an yellow shirt with a brown vest over it. Brown shinobi pants with the shins taped by brown medical tape. Her dark purple hair braided in twin ponytails down her back with a bang on her left cheek, blocking her left eye and showing her red right eye. She's athletically built and has a broad axe strapped to her back. But the weapon no less. He scratched his head, ignoring the rising kai from the Iwa Kunoichi. "Let's get this over with already. Cuddle time's on the line here." Troublesome. For some reason Juro wants to cleave the Konoha Genin in half. And surprisingly, it's not because he's a tree hugger. "Hajime?" Hayate suddenly yelled. Shikamaru hummed as he deftly ducked under the axe swing. He looked up at a very pissed off Kunoichi. "If I get to kill you, I might this village a favor." She gritted her teeth. "I could have forfeit, but something important is on the line," he answered. "So forgive me if this match is too troublesome." He apologized as he said his rat hind sign. The Iwa Kunoichi dashed at the tree hugger and swung her battle axe aimed at the Nara heir's head. "Ninpu. Kagime no Jutsu, ninja art. Shadow possession jutsu," he said as his shadow stretched out instantly and connected with Jura's. The effect was instant. The axe stopped just a few millimeters away from the lazy shinobi's neck. He can feel the blade licking at his neck. He stood straight, prompting the Iwa Kunoichi to do the same. He raised his left while Jura's red eye widened as her right hand she held her axe up. "I win," Shikamaru said as he brought the axe down on the flat end on the Kunoichi's head. The blow was hard enough to knock her to the ground and she fell into unconsciousness. "Winner, Nara Shikamaru," Hayate announced. Shikamaru yawned as he made his way back to his team. Equals Mamachi Haku vs Tarani Ia, Taki equals. "Mamachi Haku and Tarani Ia, please step down," Hayate asked. Haku nodded to her teammates and used a regular shunshin to the ground. The genin from Takigakure stood before the masked Kunoichi using a Misu shunshin, water body flicker, to reach before her. He wore a green quarter-sleeved shirt with a fishnet shirt under it. Navy-colored shinobi pants and white shinobi sandals. A kunai holster on his right thigh and an injado on his back. He has dark blue hair slicked back with narrowed yellow eyes. Haku bowed respectfully. "I hope we have a good match, Genin-san," Haku said from behind her mask. Ia simply shrugged and nodded his head. "Are the 2 combatants ready?" Hayate asked the 2 water-related shinobis and got nod from both as Haku took some senbons and Ia had his hand on the ninjado's grip. "Hajime," he shouted and leaped back. Haku decided to go first by jumping back and set her hands in 2 half-sheep signs. Her left before her chest and her right arm stretched up. "Ninpu. Kurigakure no Jutsu, ninja art. Hidden in the mist jutsu," Haku muttered as the mist rolled from her and expanded. "So she planning to finish this fast, huh?" Isarabai noted. Tajiro nodded. I hope she gets through. Ai looked around the mist. This isn't good. He mumbled. I'll have focus chakra to my ears to get her location. So many targets. Haku's voice echoed in the mist. Ai stood still and raised his senses. I can't sense a damn thing. He thought as he looked around. It seems like that neck of yours is a good time to start. Haku's voice giggled. As soon as the sentence ended, Ai felt a sting on his neck. He flinched and pulled out a senbon from it. The tuck. He looked around and drew his ninjato in a red-eyed stance. Come on out. He shouted. He lost his cool already. Naruto shook his head disappointedly. He glanced to the mint-haired girl and saw that she had a satisfied look on her face. Served him right. She thought. I wish it was me that fought him instead. You'll get your chance, larva. The demoness stated. I hope so. She thought back. Haku was standing a few feet right from the Taki genin. Pathetic. She commented. Even a genin fresh out of the academy would be able to at least try better. She said as she pulled out a dozen senbon each. HN. She grinned behind her mask. Sensei would be so proud right now. IA finally got a fix on the chakra source. I got you now. He said as he threw a barrage of kunai at the direction of his right. He was rewarded with a cry of pain, then a thud. He grinned smugly. So much for the great dot. His sentence was cut short as a needle spray of senbon was sent his way from 4 different corners. The result of him passing out due to severe pain in his body and the appearance of a human pincushion. The mist rolled over and Haku was standing over the Taki genin while removing the senbons from the perched places. Winner of this match. Momochi Haku. Haid announced. Way to Haku-chan. Isarabi cheered. The pup's not so bad. The Sanbi commented. Tajiro sighed. Good work, Haku-san. Haku took her mask off and smiled at her teammates. Thank guys. Then she looked to the board. You should look to the board. She suggested her male team member. Equals Shijiro vs Nai Yujito equals. Tajiro gulped. Really? He looked at his teammates. That was too fast. He sighed. Well then. I'm off. He did a 2-finger salute and leaped off the ledge. My turn. She grinned like a cat. I play with the fish before I cook it. Good luck Yujito. Samui told her teammate. Anibis and Churiki nodded. After the match let's go check on Carrie. She suggested. The busty teammate nodded. That's a cool idea. The pale blonde-haired Kunoichi agreed. Well then. Yujito did a peace sign and leaped down to meet her opponent. Tajiro watched the Kumo Kunoichi lands in front of him. The minute her feet touched the ground he felt that he was a fish ready to be nabbed by a hungry cat. This is weird. He thought. Why do feel like this is the worst possible matchup? Are the 2 genins ready? Haid asked Brinjin the shark teeth teen out of his thoughts. Chijiro nodded and Yujito grinned showing her feline dentures. Hajim. Haid yelled as he jumped back. Tajiro instantly performed a few hand signs. Suiton. Mizu Sandanju no Jutsu water release. Water shotgun jutsu. He then spewed few basketball-sized water bullets at the Niabijin Churiki, who dodged them like Shio in their element. As she spun from the last one she took out her kunai and blocked Chijiro's 2-handled sword. They stood there to get the upper hand. I got myself a good catch. The Kumo resident grinned. Chijiro quickly performed some one-hand signs. Suiton. Mizu Bunshin, water release. Water clone. 2 more copies of the Kiri genin morphed from the water and charge at the demoness contained both with blade prepped for an overhead strike. Yujito kicked the original away and blocked both bandage blades with a long kunai knife. Her instinct kicked in and she pulled out a shorted blade to block the original Kiri shinobi's blade. The spectators watch in amazement that the Kumo Kunoichi was holding back 3 enemies at once. Looks like the cat is cornered. Chijiro muttered. And do you what happens when that happens? She asked. They get scratched. He answered. Bingo. She answered as she gathered chakra to her nails and they extended to 1.5 feet. With fluid motion Yujito won the power struggle and slashed the 2 water clones, causing them to explode into puddles of water and wetting both of them in the process. She then spun and thrust her left hand forward to stab the Kiri genin, but he blocked her nails with his sword. He reached to grab the second handle and only stopped as a kunai was pressed to his neck. Give up. A second Yujito said coldly. Bunshin. Chijiro thought. When did you do that? When the water clones exploded. Yujito answered. Now yield or die. Chijiro sighed alright. He raised his hands. I forfeit. The clone dispersed into sparks of lightning and the kunai dropped to the ground. Winner by forfeit, Nai Yujito. Hey called out. Yujito shook Chijiro's hand and leaped to her pale blonde-haired teammate. Ready? She asked. I'm cool. Let's go. And they went to check on their redhead teammate. Equals Fu vs Matami Yudo, Taki equals. Fu grinned at her fellow villager, who glared back. They both leaped down and stared darkly at each other. I finally get to kill that demon whore. Mother, father. You will be avenged. Yuto thought. He wears a white sleeveless shirt with the Taki symbol on his chest. Dark blue shinobi pants. He wore gauntlet and greaves that were white with red highlight on them, clearly a taijutsu practitioner. He also had a 10-inch gourd on his waist. His hitai worn over his forehead. Are the two combatants ready? Fu nodded as Yuto scowled at the green-haired Kunoichi. Hajime. The Jonin yelled as he jumped back. Fu glanced at Hayate with her non-pupil orange eyes. An advice. She started. Do not interrupt the match. No matter what. I plan to kill him and this is the only excuse I can get, she said truthfully. Hayate remained silent for a while and looked at the Hokage, who also in deep thought. Hiruzen nodded and the sickly Jonin coughed before he gave the reply. This will be a death match between Fu and Matami Yuto. Both shinobis of Takigakure. Are you both ready to stake your lives for your lands? He asked. I've been waiting for the opportunity to kill this whore. Yuto gritted. Hajime, he said. Yuto wasted no time to attack. He moved to high Chunin speed and swing his arm for a punch. Fu simply dodged it. Is that all? She said in a bored manner. Itachi Genin simply gritted his teeth and swung for low kick. Fu leaped back and grinned at him. Oh come on. She picked her ear with left pinky and checked for anything she dug out. Your parents did better than that. She mumbled loud enough for him to hear. Yuto saw red. You piss. The Genin snarled as he popped the cap off the gaurers and poured the water out Suiton. Mizuken, water Rallis. Water sword. He dashed at them instead and swung for the kill. Fu simply grinned as she grabbed the water sword. Not even moving an inch from the force. Getacha. She grinned. The enraged Genin noted the color of the hand that held the water sword, it was black. That technique. He paled. Right. She sang as she pulled him in and kneed him in the stomach hard, adding both hers and the Nanabi's chakra into the force. Yuto coughed a blob of blood as he felt his back crack but not broken. He lost his concentration, the water sword fell on the ground, forming a harmless puddle. Fu let go of his arm and allowed him to fall down, only to grin and kneed him savagely in the face, breaking his nose. That's gotta hurt. Jashin commented. She was enjoying the scene of the one-sided fight. Perhaps if she's interested she can join. She thought vocally. I agree with Ja-chan, Sachi. Kushina added her 2 cents. From what I remember, Chame is a very bloodthirsty individual, even more than Shukaku. You're kidding, right? Naruto asked. Well, now that you know that you have 2 psycho godmothers, how does that make you feel? The QB asked her host with teeth-baring grin. They're my what, he mentally shouted. Kushina logged her head off. Inside Shukaku's seal. The woman about the age of 27 sat in lotus position. She has alabaster-colored skin, and her eyes were closed. Taking deep concentrating breaths, she tried to keep her emotion in check. She wore a yellow open yukata showing her well-endowed F-cup cleavage and a black belt tied around her stomach. Her hair is sand brown and one braided ponytail over her left shoulder. Her nose wiggled, then she suddenly sneezed. Who the hell is talking about me? She muttered as waves of sand were swirling violently. Back to the match. You got a cold, Chao-chan? Fu questioned the insect queen after heard her sneeze. Perhaps someone was talking about me. She paused. It better be someone that can back up what they said. She sounded like she wanted blood. And bad too. Fu mentally shrugged as she walked to her downed opponent. Time to impress my fiancé. She thought as she grabbed her soon-to-be ex-villager by the throat and held him as his feet dangled slightly of the ground. What affinity were you again? She asked the beaten Genin. Huck, why you? He gritted, then spat some blood on her face. Fu wiped the LIF3 fluid with her unoccupied hand and buried that same hand in his stomach. I think it's time to meet your parents and tell them how much of a failure you became. She suggested to the teammate. She held her hand back and black threads creep out of her skin and wavered to his chest. Without hesitation, the threads burrowed their way into his chest until they latched around the desired organ. His heart. She thought as she began to pull the pulsing organ out, ignoring the Genin's protest and pleas to stop. More black tendrils came out and ripped his chest open, bringing a lot blood out of and showing the inside of his chest to all to see. Many of the spectators paled and tried to hold their lunch down, while others simply stared at the scene. Fu was chuckling at the fearful expression of the Genin. His heart still connected to his blood vessels thanks to the black threads. It's good to have access to village secrets. She looked at the dying Genin. Don't you agree? And with that, the Nanabi Jinchuriki took his heart and held it in her palms. The tendrils inside them to keep the heart pumping. She dropped the body on the ground and scowled at the still beating organ. Pathetic. She muttered. To have such a weak affinity of earth. She crushed the heart and let the bloody pump fell on the ground. Winner of the death match, Fu of Takigakure. Hayate announced. Fu wiped her hands on the dead Genin's body and made her way to the balcony. She stopped when she heard someone clapping. The mint-haired container looked to the source and saw the demon goddess clapping, congratulating her. Well done. She smiled. Very well done indeed. A true display of Jashinism. She looked the caramel tantine. It'd be of great honor if you were to join us to our seating. She invited. Fu thought for a while and shrugged. Sure. Do I get to talk to the cutie over there? She jerked her head at a direction. Jashin nodded. Then follow me. She gestures with a wave of her hand. Equals Akimichi Chaoji vs Yuga Hinata equals. Hinata and Chaoji looked at each other after the proctor called them out. They looked at each other for a few seconds. Both clan heiresses walked downstairs and faced each other. Are the two kunoichis ready? The sickly Jonin asked. He saw as they both slipped into their respected family stance, Hinata's Jaikin and Chaoji's Kumakin, bare fist. Hajime. He yelled as he leaped back. The two heiresses rushed at each other, both wanting to end this as fast as possible. Chaoji reared her hand back and swung down hard. The heiress stepped to the side just as the offending limb was near her. She actually felt the force behind the swing. If that did hit, she didn't want to end that thought. She leaped back. Byakugan. Her veins bulged and she narrowed her eyes in concentration. The Akimichi heiress stood in defense, even though that might not block her Tenketsu. She raised her arms. Beiken no Jutsu, partial expansion jutsu. She yelled as she swung her arms down. Yuga heiress watched as the Akimichi heiress's arms turned to massive proportions. She leaped just not to smashed like a bug. Rah! Chaoji yelled as she swung her leg after she brought her arms back to their normal size and was before the heiress. Hinata ducked backwards, showing her flexibility as the leg hovered over her. She quickly jabs a few points of the offending limb. Chaoji cringed at the feeling as she pulled her leg back and leaped back and stood on her good luck. Hinata took a deep calming breath and stared at her fellow villager with a stoic expression. Shit. The brown-haired heiress mentally cursed. With my leg in this shape, it won't end well. Akimichi-san, please give up. Or I'll have to put you down for a few hours. Chaoji grinned as she stood a bit straighter. Well, that's very nice of you, Hinata-san. The Akimichi heiress smiled. Thank you. The heiress said as she rushed at low Jonin speed, shocking her fellow heiress. But I win. She said as she was behind Chaoji with her hand about a few millimeters away from her neck. Raiden. Titan, lightning release. Blackout. The Hyuga heiress said as she sent small jolt of electricity and knocked the Akimichi heiress out. She caught the brunette heiress and allowed the Mednin to take care of her. Winner, of this match, Hyuga, Hinata. Hate said. Why am I coughing now? I wasn't so much during the few matches. Equals Kuritsuchi vs Yamanaka Ino equals. Kuritsuchi narrowed her pink eyes at the screen. My turn. She said as she leaped off the balcony. Wish me luck, Naru-kun. Ino smiled as she pecked the Jinchuriki on the cheeks and leaped to the floor. Are the two kunoichis, ready? Hade asked with a near non-noticeable frown. Hi. The two kunoichis nodded. Hajime. He leaped back. Kuritsuchi quickly went through Soma hand signs in quick succession and held the boar hand sign. Doten. Chikitsupeku, earth release. Earth spikes. While the spike pierced from the ground towards the Yamanaka heiress, she performs another set of hand signs. Doten. Tsuchiyari, earth release. Earth spears. She said as rock spears shut behind her and shot at the platinum blonde kunoichi. Said kunoichi avoided the projectiles and danced around the spikes like a ballerina. She then performs sand hand signs and places her mouth to her lips. Suiton. Mizumamakiri, water release. Surface licer. She said as she spewed a thin pressured water stream from the ground towards the Iwa Genin. Pain. Kishimakugahara. Extinguishing curtain field, she yelled as she slammed her feet on the ground. A crack of red hot line raced at the Yamanaka heiress and Sayap tried at her feet. Her instinct told her to get the hell out of the way. Good thing to cause Shibuya burned Yamanaka if she didn't. The orange-tinted Blackcat looked around as the volcanic attack subsided, leaving a small pool of lava on in its wake. The Yamanaka heiress frowned, disliking the fact that her opponent has the ground advantage. She quickly rushed at the Iwa kunoichi with her kunai raised and clashed with pink-eyed female. Ino grinned as she stared into the pink eyes and muttered ninpo. Kokoro no sanpo, ninja art. Mind walk. Both kunoichi's eyes glazed over and haste stood in their position. Kuritsuchi's mindscape. Ino stepped on a red rock surrounded by lava and molten rocks. This is very healthy mindscape despite its appearance. She noted. You're not welcome here. An orange pawed foot stepped on a rock above Ino's head, looked up and her eyes widened. And you'll be sorry for coming in just like that. Real world. Ino's eyes unglazed and she leaped back. She was panting and sweating a lot. She then felt something roll down her face and she whipped it. Blood. She grinned at the Iwa kunoichi who scowled at her. Proctor, I forfeit. The Yamanaka era said. Heiei nodded and raised his hand. Winner of the final preliminaries, Kuretsuchi. Heiei announced. The Iwa Kunoichi gritted her teeth. She was in my mind. She mentally berated herself for letting her guard down. I'm gonna kill her. But thought abruptly stopped when she sensed a pair of eyes looking at her. She followed the feeling and locked eyes with red slitted eyes. Naruto noted the rising killing intent aimed at the platinum blonde, so he decided to gain the person's attention. The two locked eyes with each other as if having a mental debate. Kuretsuchi narrows her pink eyes and looked away with a huff as she walked back up the balcony. An hour later. The group was standing on the ground in a row. Anko walking with Box and winked once Naruto got the piece of paper. He simply smiled at her. Okay, now name your numbers from right to left. The head of the T&I division said. Those will be numbers that will be set up in a tournament style at the Chunin exams finals. 4. Shikamaru sighed. 9. Kankuro said with a grin. 16. Isarabi answered. 10. Shino stated. 6. Yujito grinned. 11. Gaara frowned. 15. Samui said. 1. Naruto chuckled. 7. Fu smirked. 14. Haku nodded. 3. Tamari stated and frowned when she hears Shikamaru sighed. 5. Mikoto said as she smoothed the cloth on her blade. 13. Kin said twirling a senbon. 2. Kuretsuchi glanced at the Kyuubi offspring. 8. Hinata smiled. 17. Isarabi said. That leaves the Uchiha with 12. Ibiki muttered. The Sandaime stepped forward. Various head images and important people will be arriving for the finals. You have 3 months to brush up and create new techniques. I wish you all good luck. 2 weeks later. Naruto was walking along the outskirts of Konoha. For the past 2 weeks he's been training diligently and spending time with his fiancées and managed to go in separated dates with Kin, Karen, Ino and Tenten. Who's there? He said as he stopped on an open field. It seems that you can sense my presence even if I do erased it. An echoing male voice stated as he stepped out from the tree before the Sandaime Kyuubi Jinchuriki. A man, well the figure of a man stood there. He wears a near full white suit that gives him a buffed appearance and is at least 6'8". His leggings comprise of a white hakama pants and grey trims. He has a long sword over his right shoulder that's at least his length. A white helmet-like mask over his face and long silver blue hair and a high ponytail that reached to his thighs. Who are you? Naruto asked with a defensive tone. Don't worry, Sachi. Kushina told her son. This is Hakumen. A good friend of mine. She introduced the semi-armored man. By your looks it seems that Kushina-san has told you of me. He asked and Naruto nodded. Good. He drew his sword and slashed. A rip in the air appeared and Hakumen sheathed his sword and walked in. Then we shall begin your training immediately. He said as Naruto left a message for his girls as he walked into the rip. The rip closed and an enraged Sasuke looked at the scene. I'll get that power, dope. He chuckled as the cursed seal spread through his body. I swear. Chapter end. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Peace out.